Hello, and welcome to the Product Hackers Conference 2025. I'm Alex Granados, the demand generation lead at this company. And I want to start by just giving you a bit of context on this event. We started last year in Madrid, just to put the word out there on how experimentation and the scientific method give light and guidance to companies on how to grow. And the idea here is that they're no good or bad ideas. We just test them. And through that way, we find the most efficient path to growth. So as I was saying, we started last year in Madrid with top people like Sean Ellis, Yara Paoli, Maya Boyet, Tomas Puello, Talia Wolf. Many cool people. Actually, some of them are back again this year. And today, you're being part of an experiment. Why? Because as an event, this event will have a North Star metrics along the lines of the number of people who know about this methodology. And this year we had kind of an experimental question, which is, would making this event free and online for everyone help us get the word out there more? And the answer is yes, as we got around 900 people signed up this year. So we've got evidence that yeah, it works. So thank you all for coming. Today, we've got lots of interesting topics, from testing ideas in SaaS to how pricing affects growth or how to apply AI properly into your company. So I really hope you enjoy. Before that, I want to thank our sponsors, WordPress.com and Optimizely. It's super cool to have such relevant brands support such an event, especially taking into account how young it is. So thanks a lot. Today you'll have the chance to listen to a couple of talks from them, so stay tuned. And just super quickly, last but not least, today we're running a contest and we're giving away 2 copies of Talia Wolf's new book, Emotional Targeting. And you will be given one of these books if you're the person who asked the most questions today. So curiosity is being rewarded today. The rules are simple. There will be a space after every talk to ask questions. So if you ask a question, you get 1 participation with a limit of 1 participation per talk. So basically, if you're one of the 2 people with the most participations today, you will get one of the copies. So just be curious today. And no more talk from my side. I'm going to introduce our very first speaker. He's one of the founders of Product Hackers and the CEO. He's Luis Díaz del Dedo. And he will talk about how AI will shape the future of growth. So let's welcome Luis.
Hi, thank you very much, Alex, for your presentation. It was really cool. And let's go. I'm ready. So go. Is it go for me? Okay, let's go. Fine. Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for being here today. It's a privilege to share this space with so many people who are investing their time in learning, improving, and with us shaping the future of growth. Before we start, I want to say a big thank you for our partners, Automatic, or aka WordPress.com, and Optimizely, for helping make this possible, and to our amazing team of marketing, for bringing the Product Hackers Conference 2025 to life. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. My name is Luis Díaz del Dedo, and I'm the CEO and founder of Product Hackers, the growth company. We have helped 100 of large companies applying the best of growth with the agility and results of the most successful scale-ups. I have spent the past 3 years helping brands grow faster through data, experimentation, and technology. And today, I'd like to share a few ideas about how AI is transforming growth as we know it. But just a quick note before we dive in. English is not my native language, as you can see. So if at any point I say something that sounds a little creative, I hope you will forgive me. So thank you. And let's go. Let me start by going back to when I was younger, at 29. At that time, there was no space for growth. Growth wasn't even a thing yet. It was just doing your job. You have a company, a startup, and you want to scale it. So it was experimentation, curiosity, and a lot of chaos. Then at 2010, Sonelis gave us a name, growth hacking. We started playing between product and business, between product and user, with small front-end scripts, homemade automations with end-to-end testing tools, social networks, API exploits. It was pure hacking. It was really fun. No roadmap, no playbooks, just pure instinct and execution. But then the first tools showed up, and suddenly we could breathe. The first version of Amplitude, the wonderful Intercom full service at $99 a month, Zapier, Google Tag Manager, Google Analytics experiment cohorts. We started to test faster and to understand better. Years later, everything matured. Users got smarter, competitors got faster, attribution got blurry. Marketing became an outdated cash-burning machine, so acquisition cost went up and privacy walls rose. We learned to lead teams, align products, marketing, data, design, all working together, and growth became less about hacking and more about building systems for sustainable impact. And at that point, growth becomes harder, but more strategic and more interesting than ever. And now that we are like, everything is changing again. It's nothing new. Everything is changing. AI is here, and people are freaking out outside. And honestly, it is not hard to understand why, because AI is moving so fast. Think about translators, journalists, creators. Their entire teams are being replaced by tools. I'm not sure if it's AI or it's just an excuse, but they are doing it. And we are fucked is a phrase that has become a symbol of this moment, a cry for creative world from people who build the internet as we know it. For example, Caisi in one of the latest videos, he writes something like, "We are fucked." But what about us? What about growth? Are we effed like they are? Are we? Because do you remember when AutoCAD was going to replace architects? Spoiler, that never happened. That never happened. In fact, AutoCAD and every tool that came after it helped architects to reach the peak of modern design, creating buildings one thought impossible, absolutely impossible. Technology didn't replace architects. It pushed them to the very limits of physics. It made it better. So from my perspective, AI is like AutoCAD for architects or Excel for accountants. It will empower those who are curious and passionate enough to the best out of it, to get the best out of it. People like you, people like me, people who are here today learning how to become better professionals. I believe that AI won't kill growth. It will make it better than ever. In my opinion, there are some critical pillars that will make growth better. The first is the AI-powered distribution, because there are numbers, because right now, the number of digital products and channels is about to explode. Everything is building. Everyone is launching apps, websites, new social networks, And sooner than you think, AI will be building, if it is not doing it yet, and AI will be shipping. It is going to explode. It is going to be massive. But there is a thing. Distribution will still be the bottleneck as it is today, because the easier it gets to create, the harder it becomes to reach people, at least while customers are still humans. We are entering in what I call the ultra fragmentation of demand. Audiences are splitting into thousands of micro niches, each with its own needs, technologies, cultures, platforms, rhythm. But the only way to fight this ultra fragmentation of demand, which is every day is more difficult to reach our target audience, is through the ultra segmentation of the audience. And it will be AI powered, or it won't, because we will need that massive power. AI is mostly solving the very problems it creates along the way, making our job more complex, but also more interesting, more efficient, and more human than ever. And that's, for me, is like the most important point of this pitch today. Because I believe that digital products are going to be more human than ever. At the beginning of my talk, I spoke about the origins of growth and digital products. And back then, interfaces and experience were absolutely limited by archaic technology. So we did the best we could. But even today, our interfaces and systems are just the best we could build so far. But now we have in front of us endless possibilities, infinite possibilities. We can do almost everything. We might not even need interfaces. We might not need websites or screens anymore. It could be just voice or text or sub-vocalization or thought. I don't know. But the next generation of growth tools will be able to detect even users' emotions. And for me, the most important part is that these tools are going to be able to react in real time to those emotions, which is amazing. We are now reacting in order of if our user is using iPhone or Android. That's not human. That's just technology. But now, because we have finally able to process the thousands of signals and that our technology could never handle before. So we can generate and detect this bias, these emotions, and all these that make us human. So for me, this is the very first moment in human history when technology can truly become more human than ever. Because now we have the technology and the computing power to process all the information that allows our digital products to react to human behaviors and even simulate it in return. We have the power in our hands. So welcome to the beginning of the most human age of the digital era. And that's, for me, that's a paradox, because we have to create artificial intelligence. We have to create, as humans, we have to create artificial intelligence to be able to build the most human experience on digital products ever. Just like the architects did with AutoCAD. Because technology and the digital products are a gift for humans. So are we effed? Are we fucked? So no. I think we are not fucked. In fact, I believe that we have been gifted with AI. So thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the Product Hackers Conference. I think I've been a little bit shorter than I should, but Alex, this is on you. I hope you really enjoy the Product Hacker Conference and really learn as much as we were able to provide to you and help to improve your business. So thank you very much, Alex.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Luis. I think it's super interesting how AI is definitely changing everything and changing the game. So yeah, thanks a lot for introducing this event. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So we're gonna introduce our next um speaker. He's Lucas Adrián. He's the group product manager at Eventbrite, and he's gonna talk about how to turn a test into a product that scales. So welcome, Lucas.
Thank you very much, Alex. Can you see my screen well? Can you hear me well?
All good.
Okay, great. So there we go. So hi, everyone. First of all, thanks to Product Hackers and the team for making this possible and for having me here today. My talk is called Scaling Start Small. It's about how big results in product usually start with small ideas, small tests, small experiments that we learn from and then scale. I will show how we have done that at Eventbrite, taking simple product hypotheses and turning them into things that make an impact around the world. So, first of all, let me present myself. I am Lucas. I am a group PM at Eventbrite. In fact, this month marks 5 years since I joined the company. And over these years, I have had the opportunity to work in different areas of the product, mainly focus on the B2B side, our event creators, event organizers of events, those who create events. They are core part of our platform, and we aim to provide a best-in-class, fully self-service experience. It means that any organizer of events can use our platform to create their events without needing to contact a human to do so. And more recently, I've also been focusing on the B2C side, our ticket buyers, any of us that can attend to an event and can buy tickets for it. So my scope includes everything from event creation, the B2B side, to event experience itself and the ticket purchase process, the B2C side. So I'm connecting the both worlds. And my work is about finding ways to make the creator experience more efficient and the buyer experience more engaging. Because in a two-side marketplace, if one side slows down, the other side suffers. And today, I would like to share one of the initiatives we launched that has had a great impact. A story about how something small with a clear hypothesis and a clear problem statement through the use of AI, we'll talk about AI too, can evolve into a feature that scales globally. And before going into the detail, I would like to give some context first about Eventbrite. Eventbrite is one of the largest global marketplaces for live experience in the world. Every year, close to 1 million creators use our platform to publish events. Million creators, that's a huge. From small community events to festivals, concerts, medium events, we have a huge type of events in our platform. In fact, last year we had approx 5 million events, both free and paid. And on the other side, we have around 90 million people coming to Eventbrite each month to find something to do. In fact, like Eventbrite is truly global. We are operating in over 170 countries. And our mission is simple but powerful: to bring the world together through live experiences. We want to connect people together. And to achieve that, one of our biggest challenges that is related with the story that I'm going to share with all of you is lowering the barrier to entry for creators, reducing the barriers. Because if the creators, can start faster, if we can help them get from idea to the event to ticket sales in less time, we can unlock growth for both sides of the marketplace. And that's where this story is going to start. Prior to this initiative that I'm going to share, we had one unified event creation flow for everyone. Whether you were creating your first event or your 50th, whether you were an expert in creating events or someone with no prior experience in it. And that worked. In fact, that consistency helped us scale. But it also meant that very different types of creators went through the same steps. And in fact, some needed a structure. They wanted to be guided carefully through each section, selecting the categories, writing the descriptions, adjusting ticket options, and others already knew exactly what they wanted. They were more experts. They just need a quick way to bring that event to life. So in this case, this wasn't about fixing something broken. It was about improving adaptability, creating a flow that could flex to each creator's level of confidence and intent, and allow those who were ready to move faster to actually do so. To have the opportunity to play around with the product, because most of us will like to play with something before like doing the last buy, and we wanted them to like to play with the product, experiment with it, and see the value it could bring without having to spend too much time on it. So I mentioned, like, we are human beings, and as such, we often lack patience. There are people with more patience, there are people with less, and we want everything right away. I have that situation, for example. So we had the opportunity to make it more adaptive for those creators who wanted to move faster. And also, I want to add more context on why this was also important for our marketplace. Because we know that reducing friction in how our product is used can help improve the flywheel of our marketplace. Later, I will go deeper on the flywheel because I think that is very important in order to connect it to the growth part. So during our discovery phase, because the discovery part in a new initiative, new product is super important, we started digging into our data. And we found that there were different parts of the flow causing some friction. One notable insight was that the certain usage trends were starting to shift. In this case, from what specific device the creators started to use the product. While desktop had always been the dominant platform for event creation, we began to see a significant rise in mobile web. The number of creators starting to create events from mobile increased a lot. It was huge, the number, compared with historically. Yet, and here is where the problem came, like their publish rates were half of those creating from desktop. Like for us, like the publish rate of an event is one of our main metrics. That's a KPI that we monitor on a regularly basis. And when we went into the detail, we saw that the publish rates for creators creating events from mobile web was half than desktop. And it's true that, and we knew that desktop typically saw a higher intent because the complexity that creating an event has. But the gap was too large. So we saw this an opportunity to optimize, not just by making the experience more mobile friendly from a UX point of view, but also by ensuring that events could be created faster and more easily without sacrificing quality, the quality of the product and the quality of the event. And in fact, this insight tied directly to growth because Eventbrite Marketplace operates as a flywheel. Creator success drives consumer success and vice versa. In fact, when creators publish faster, more events go live. More supply, in our case, the supply is the number of events that we have in the platform, means more choice for consumers. We have more options to choose, which drives more discovery. And that could drive more ticket sales because in the end, what we want is to ensure that our creators are selling all of the tickets that they have in their event. And that revenue allows us to reinvest in better tools, to reinvest in product, in technology, in platform scalability, and in experience, in a better experience for our creators and our consumers. So the truth is that it is a true growth loop. Every improvement at the creator level accelerates the entire marketplace. And that's why I want to talk about the importance of our growth flywheel. And this is a perfect example of it. This is how our marketplace grows. Creator success fuels consumer success, as I mentioned before. Every time a creator publishes faster, it adds supply to the marketplace. It adds more optional for consumers. It adds more discovery. It can help consumers to discover more events, to identify the ones that they are looking for. And that is translated to more ticket sales. and more revenue, as I mentioned. So it's a self-reinforcing loop, a growth flywheel. That's why helping creators move faster is not just about UX or activation, it's about making strong the core of our business. That's mainly for context. And our focus became clear. We wanted to help creators reach their first moment of value sooner. We wanted them to ensure that they can touch the value of the platform as soon as possible. That means reducing the time between having an idea of the type of event that you want to create and seeing a real publishable event page, an event that can that they can touch. The event page is what we call it listing page. That is the listing of the event. So we wanted to ensure that they were able to use it, to see it, and to touch it as soon as possible. Because the truth is that when creators can see something tangible that they can touch right away, it builds confidence. They start experimenting with it. They change the content of the event. They can improve it, and they can move forward faster. So with this, it was about simplifying the interface. It was about unlocking momentum, giving creators that instant sense of progress that fuels growth and retention. And right as we were defining this opportunity, helping creators reach value faster, something special happened. Most of you know this company. It's super famous. OpenAI had just released its first public API. And for the first time, we were able to experiment with this technology at a scale, because the truth is that before that public API, we were able to do some experiments, but not so fast and not at scale. And all of that with a very simple integration. And connected with this, like at Eventbrite, we run internal hackathons to encourage the creativity and exploration of the teams. And during one of those sessions, because we try to do at least one per quarter, a small like cross-functional team, engineering, designers, and product managers, decide to play with this new capability. And the fun fact was that in just a couple of days, they built a road prototype. In that prototype, you just had to include the most essential information for your event, like just the title, the location, the venue, and starting price. And based on that, we created the whole event for you, very completed, adding a summary, very detailed, based on the type of the information that you included, identify the type of the category of the event based on only the title, a description with a great structure, tags, and the category of the event that is used in order to increase its visibility, both internally in our marketplace, because we have a website and different apps, Android and iOS, and also for SEO purposes, because based on how you build the schema of a listing page, it can help SEO purposes to increase the visibility beyond Eventbrite only. In fact, another thing that we included was the image of the event. We were able to create an image based on the information that the creator provided us. In that time, we weren't able to use OpenAI for images, because at that moment they didn't deliver good results yet. But we used Midjourney. In that moment, Midjourney was like the top AI tool for creating images. So we created a bank of images for it. And the truth is that it was simple, but it worked. That hackathon prototype proved two things. The first one, that AI could remove friction without removing creativity. And the second one is that curiosity inside a company can be just as powerful as any external innovation. That hackathon, in fact, turned an emerging technology into a real actionable opportunity. And for the first time, we could help a creator go from an idea to exposure, from a blank page to an event that could be seen by millions of consumers, of users, in seconds, as you are seeing here in this video. This is the real one, okay? This is what we have in production today. And in less than 15 seconds, you can create an event from scratch with a couple of inputs you include. And think about that. Like, one spark of inspiration, and within moments, it could reach 90 million potential attendees around the world. And that's not about AI for AI's sake. It's about using technology with purpose, as a means to remove friction, not as an end in itself. In this case, AI was simply the enabler that allowed us to help creators share their ideas faster than ever before. And that led to our hypothesis. Our hypothesis was, if we guide creators and generate event content for them, then they will publish faster and see value sooner, because we reduce the effort and uncertainty involved in creating and launching an event. AI wasn't the goal, it was the enabler. I'm going to repeat that during this presentation because I want all of you to have that in mind. It allows us to help creators focus on creativity and intent, while the system handled structure and repetition. So it was the perfect interstitium of a real user problem and an emerging technology opportunity. So once we had our hypothesis, the next step was turning it into something tangible, but fast. We didn't replace the existing event creation flow. That would have been so far too risky. Instead, we built an additional flow, lightweight version that we call auto-create events. The idea was to make it optional, but we will see later what we did finally. And the traditional flow remained exactly the same for creators who wanted full control. This new experience, the idea, gave another path, one that started simple and generate a full event automatically. So as I mentioned with the hackathon, the flow asks for fields, title, date, location, and ticket price. And from those inputs, we generate, thanks to AI, the rest. Event description, category, tags, even an image. And one thing is that we built it primarily for new creators, people coming to Eventbrite for the first time, but we also wanted to see if experienced creators, it means like creators that were using the platform for a while, might adopt it as a way to speed up their workflow. One important thing here is that our guiding principle was simple. Test what matters without breaking what already works. We didn't want to break the regular flow because we knew that that was part of our core product. And another thing to mention, at Eventbrite, we are super lucky to be a global company because that gives us flexibility in where and how we test. We choose to launch in the US, and not because it was the safest. In fact, probably it would be the opposite to safest, but because it was where we could learn the fastest. The US for us has the right mix, high volume, high data quality, and a broad spectrum of creators, from first-timers to professionals. And that diversity meant that we could get statistically strong results quickly because we want to ensure that we receive data as soon as possible. So here, our focus was on new creators first, because in fact, that's where we expected the biggest lift in activation. But from the very beginning, we also wanted to make sure that the experience could scale globally. We didn't want to do something and 2 months later, having the need to redoing everything from scratch again. So we, with a lot of conversations with engineering, we build infrastructure with localization hooks, currency flexibility, and even a visual layer that could adapt to each event type. As I mentioned before, we created a bank of images using Midjourney, and we grouped them by category. So with a model that we created in the backend, we were able to identify, based on the category of the event, a specific image in order to be associated to that specific event. In other words, even though this was an MVP, but we built it with scaling in mind. And we approach this like any other experiment with discipline. We designed an A/B test targeting new creators only, the segment where friction was highest and where the potential value was greatest. The control group went through the traditional creation flow, and the variant group entered the new auto-create experience. Beyond the flow, everything else, like the marketing landing pages, the onboarding, all of the conditions, stay identical. We just change the flow to create your first event. And we track 3 main metrics. First one is first paid publish. This is one of our main metrics that we track, and we also have as a KPI. We want to ensure that the creators are publishing their events, and we want also to publish paid events. And in this case, this metric is the moment that a creator publishes their first paid event. The second one is event draft saves. It means having the event created, saved in draft status, and it is an early indicator of engagement and intent. And the third one is time to publish. How quickly creators move from the idea to completion, from start creating the event until they publish and make it public for all of the consumers. So here, the hypothesis was simple. If we could accelerate that first success, we will see lifts across all 3 metrics. And the great thing is that the results came in quickly, and they spoke for themselves. In just 9 days, across 16,000 exposures, we saw a 10% uplift in first paid publish and a 22% increase in draft saves. And the thing is that the pattern was consistent across platforms, both desktop and mobile. We wanted to see an increase in mobile, and with this one, we showed that both conversion rates were similar when we launched AutoCreate. So that was great. We also validated that those events started selling tickets after being published, ensuring that organizers were pulling faster without losing event quality, because we didn't want only to publish faster, but also ensuring that the events were good quality and they were selling tickets. In fact, the time it takes for ticket sales to start varies greatly depending on the type of event, but at least it remained consistent with the baseline that we had. So this was a huge validation of our hypothesis. When you remove the friction of starting, creators move faster, publish more, and engage deeper. And it wasn't just about speed, it was about momentum. And that momentum was exactly what we wanted to unlock. So once we validated the signal with new creators, we asked a simple question. Will experienced creators also benefit from this speed? Like, will the existing creators, those who were using our platform for a while, also benefit from this speed? And we didn't want to assume one response or the other. So we tested that's what we need to do from a product side. So we introduced a small visible option on different parts of the product platform called Create with AI. In that example, you can see this is the option that is on the bottom. And this allows existing creators to opt in when they wanted a fast path to publish. And an interesting thing is that after launching it, we saw that almost 30% of the existing creators were creating their events clicking on the button option. Like they wanted to start using it. And at the beginning, I was surprised. I went, wow, that's a huge number because take in mind that events are their business. And at the beginning, we thought that it could be like something new that they wanted to test, but that percentage remains the same until today. So we have a huge number of creators that are still starting their event using this tool. Going back to the experiment, over the following 16 days, the experiment reached more than 300,000 exposures, 300,000. So it's huge, the number of creators that were seeing this new experience. And the results were, again, consistent. More than 4% uplift in paid publish and almost 4% more events saved as drafts. What we learned was super powerful. This wasn't just an onboarding tool, it was a productivity tool. Because experienced creators were using it to reduce time to publish and get their events live faster. And that gave us the confidence to move beyond experimentation and to go there. After validating in the US, we started the global rollout, but carefully. Scaling an AI assisted experience is not about flipping a switch, because each market has its own languages, tax rules, cultural nuances, and visual preferences. So what we did, we started with English-speaking markets, the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and then gradually expand to more than 30 countries. In our case, each rollout involved fine-tuning prompts for language. I don't know if you have played with the AI, probably yes. I hope that mostly all of you have played with it, but you need to fine-tune the prompt every single time. In this case, we did it a lot for language, for updating the categories, and ensuring that all of the images reflected cultural diversity. And the results stay consistent. The uplift held across regions, and the feedback from creators was super positive. They were sharing with us that they really like it. So it proved that the need we had identified was universal. It's true that after creating their events, like they were editing it to put more things, but the time to publish was like a totally success in terms of the reduction of the time, and the creators were happy about that because they didn't need to start from scratch and from a blank page. And going deeper on the results and impact, that small experiment grew into a core capability used globally. Across markets, we consistently saw a 10% improvement in new creator activation and a 4.5% in paid publish for existing creators. We also reduced the effort time to publish by around 30%, allowing creators to spend less time setting up and more time focusing on what truly matters, their events and their audience, and also starting to create their marketing campaigns. Also, financially, it helped us to increase the revenue, but the real impact was human. Thousands of creators able to get their events out faster, reaching millions of attendees sooner. So a small test that started in one market now contributes meaningful business value at scale. And looking back, there were three main principles that really made this work. And I think that they apply to almost any product challenge that you can face. The first was clarity. We started with a specific measurable hypothesis that reducing the creation effort will increase publish rates. Everyone understood it, from design to data to engineering. Everyone in the room understood that. So clarity is super important. The second was focus. We didn't try to solve everything at once. We chose one behavior, publishing speed, and tested small. And third, iteration. We didn't overplan. We learned through data and feedback loops. We listened to what creators were saying, adjust our copy, refine prompts, and optimize the AI output week after week. In fact, the formula wasn't fancy. It was clarity, focus, and speed. But that combination made the difference between a local test and a global success. When I look back at this project, there are 5 lessons that really stand out. Not just for this feature, but for how we build products at scale. The first one is that growth happens when user success fuels the flywheel. Every small improvement in creator velocity, every friction we remove compounds across the entire marketplace. More supply, more demand, more discovery, more revenue. Growth is never one big bet, it's hundreds of small, well-placed ones. Second, speed is powerful, but only when paired with clarity. Moving fast works when everyone is aligned on a measurable goal. It's not about rushing, it's about learning quickly and adapting. Third, use technology as an enabler, not as a destination. In our case, AI wasn't our goal, it was our vehicle. It helped us solve a real problem, not chase a trend. Fourth, build for scalability from day one. even your MVP should have the bones to grow globally. Localization, modular design, flexibility, identify use cases that could be a huge pain in the future. That's what makes scaling scaling easier later on. And finally, foster creativity space. Foster the creative part of the human being. This whole story started in a hackathon, in a room full of people experimenting without fear of failure. So creating those environments where teams can explore, try, and build quickly is what unlocks the next wave of ideas. And for me, these 5 principles, growth, speed, purpose, scalability, and creativity, are what turn small experiments into global strategies. Not only that, this project ended up being much more than a single feature launch. It became a mindset shift. It proved that small, focused experiments can truly drive global strategy. We didn't start with a big vision of AI transformation. We started with a simple hypothesis and a team curious enough to test it. And it also showed that AI, when it's used with purpose, can empower people, not replace them. This is super important. It empowers us. It doesn't replace us. And our goal was never to automate creativity. It was to give it a head of start, to help creators see progress faster and feel that spark of momentum that makes them want to keep building things with us. And beyond the metrics, this work make stronger our culture of experimentation and growth. It reminds us that every learning, no matter how small, contributes to the flywheel. More creators succeeding, more events going live, more people discovering things they love, and it reaffirms something I deeply believe in. That innovation doesn't just happen through planning, it happens through curiosity. You need to be curious in order to identify new ideas and to bring creativity to the table. When teams are encouraged to explore, to prototype, and to play with new ideas, like we did in that hackathon, we unlock possibilities we didn't even know existed. Because in the end, this wasn't just a story about scaling a product, it was a story about scaling, learning, creativity, and impact. And just to close, if I had to summarize this entire story in only one sentence, it will be this. Scaling starts small. Start with clarity, define a problem you can measure, validate it through focused experimentation, and only then scale with purpose. Because every global strategy, whether it's AI power or not, begins with a single well-defined hypothesis and a team willing to test it. In this case, AI helped us to move friction, but what truly drove impact was our commitment to learning, to experimentation, and to helping creators bring people together faster. So that's the story of how something small, a simple experiment, became something global. And if you don't have plans for this weekend, download the Eventbrite app. You can find for events. And if you want to create an event in the medium, short, or long term, access to eventbrite.com, create an event. And if you have any feedback, just share it with me. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Lucas. It was super interesting to see that whole process of how it started, how the idea started in a hackathon and then it went global. So thanks a lot. We have a couple of minutes for questions. Well, actually, there was also a comment. Tara said it would have been great to see visually this process with how it looked, how that flow looked before and after. So, well, that would be cool as well. And we have a question here that says from Terere. It says, very interesting. I wanted to ask what proportion of users are currently using the proposed AI tool for creating events from scratch, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, in fact, that's something that we saw when we launched it, and the numbers remain similar. We have the two options today also in the product, like creating from scratch and starting with AI. starting from scratch is 70%, and creating with new AI, the new AI flow is 30%. That's for existing creators. What we did for new creators was putting auto create by default. So for new creators, like all of the traffic were like accessing to the auto create flow, and for existing creators, they had the opportunity to choose between one or the other, and 30%, in fact, today are using the AI flow to it. It's true that we are going to do some changes because we want to keep evolving the customization part. And now we will be adding like new features to ensure that based on who you are, we will redirect you to the right flow in order to ensure that we can keep evolving the product with enough customization.
Cool. I think that 100% answers the question. I also wanted to ask you, if you can answer, of course, how do you decide internally at Eventbrite how to prioritize opportunities? Because that's a kind of like a big topic. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a great one. Like, we prioritize based on the impact the user needs and the specific momentum of the company in that moment. In that moment, we wanted to ensure that we allow creators to move faster, to ensure that we reduce all of the barriers as possible, and also having the opportunity of the public API of OpenAI gave us the other opportunity to use a new technology and to test and to learn. So keep learning and keep experimenting is one of our main core values. So in that moment, all of that help us to share that with leadership to help us to move that forward and to put that as part of the roadmap that we had in that specific moment. In fact, in this case, the hackathon was a great excuse to put something in production and to validate with something that you can touch, idea that you want to put in production in the future.
Do you make hackathons like every so often, or?
Yeah, we like to do at least a hackathon during 1 quarter or 2 quarters. That's something that we like to. It depends on the moment of the year, but yes, that's something that we like to do.
That's super cool, and I think like culture-wise for a company, it really helps creativity. So that's super cool. So Lucas, we kind of ran out of time. Thanks a lot for being here today. That was super interesting, and yeah, have an amazing afternoon, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Have all of you a great day.
So we're gonna introduce our next speaker. He's Juanjo Traver. He's the co-founder of Declarando, and he's gonna talk about pricing, which is a powerful, very powerful growth lever. Welcome, Juanjo.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here today. So I'll let you to it.
Okay, let's talk about pricing. First of all, I think if you are agree with me that pricing is the most powerful lever for growing, the most powerful of all of them. You can see in this graph. Let me share that only 1% of improvement yields an 11% of increase in returns. That's a number that in the past blew my mind, and we all day are focusing on selling more, avoiding expenses or whatever, but we don't spend enough time thinking about pricing. So, and this is the most powerful lever you can think about when you try to grow your business. Okay, so first of all, and if you only take one advice from my conference today, is that you have to start thinking about pricing in a daily basis. You have to start building routines, building some kind of culture around how to improve pricing frequently, because it's the kind of thing that you think once in your life when you start a business, how can we put a fair price in what we sell? And maybe you don't tweak this strategy since 2, 3, 4 years after that decision. So if you are selling products, you used to price every time you put a new product in the market. And you do that because you need to do that, but sometimes you use the same methodology for setting the price of the new product you set at the very beginning when you sold your first product. So, and if you're selling services, you used to put the price at the very beginning, and you change sometimes if your cost increase a lot, or you change a little bit if somebody tells you that you have to increase the price because the inflation is too high. But no, that's not a strategy around pricing, and you need to put some time around what can you do to improve this 1% in price every quarter, every year at least, and you have to build routines. We are not going to talk about what kind of routines you could have, but you have to start thinking about that. After this first advice, and the only one that matters, you can start tweaking, and you can start improving your strategy. But one thing that I would like to consider that is very important is that pricing is not all about the price. Pricing is about a lot of things, and one of the most important thing it's necessary to consider is when a company, when a person makes a decision to buy. The last thing is the motive, the reason they choose to buy is the features or the attributes of the thing you are selling. So you have to start thinking that, as you can see in the graph, it's more complex than that. You have to think that what consumers feel is this kind of thing that we don't used to think a lot when we build the proposal, when we build the product, when we build the landing page, whatever. And yeah, that's a lot. That's very important. There is a number that you have to start thinking about is more than 50% of the reasons the buyer takes in consideration for buying, more than 50% are not about the features and attributes, even are not about the price. There are about all other kind of things, like you can see in the graph. And on top of this, this is a theory that we are not going to go deeper on it, but it's only about how complex can be the pricing strategy. Maybe some of you have heard about this 4Ps theory about how to do go-to-market, this Michael Porter strategy we used to learn at college around a lot of things in the go-to-market, but around pricing there are a lot of things as well. And here is a theory about 12 different C's related to pricing. From all of them, for me, one of the most important and one of the most C that we have to start thinking about and considering is communication. It's how we communicate when we show our product or our service, because it's the one tactic or the one C is more easy to improve, and you have to start thinking about this in your daily decisions. Let's talk a little bit more about mistakes to avoid related with all of this complexity around pricing. The more important thing that most companies don't do is thinking about willingness to pay before building product, before building anything. Most of us have heard about lean startup theory, about understanding what your customer wants to buy before selling. But it's not only what wants to buy, it's how much is willing to pay for what you are trying to sell. Because sometimes we build the product, we build an MVP or something like that, and try to sell it. But when we build the product, we take a lot of decisions building the product, because you take a decision to build this feature, this attribute, whatever, and every decision you make is a trade-off, because some features are more complex than others to build. But we don't ask which is the willingness to pay for that feature in concrete. So when you try to build something that maybe you will be able to sell, that's not enough. You need to know how much they are going to pay, because if you build something that, people are going to buy, but for a very low price, you have a problem. Maybe you are building a business that is not profitable. So it's very, very important to if you already have products in market, every new product, every new feature you build, you don't only need to know if somebody's going to buy it, you need to know how much they are going to pay before building it. And knowing that, you can choose to build this or that. That's very important. Another mistake to avoid is unique solutions. Maybe you know that the theoretical perfect business model is the one that every different buyer gets a unique solution. But this is impossible. Obviously, we cannot build totally personalized products. You can do that, but it's not the perfect way to scale, as you all know. But the other side, a unique solution is not a good solution neither, because if you build a unique solution, you are gonna sell something in a price level where a lot of people is willing to pay more than that price, and maybe a lot of people is not. But you are gonna leave a lot of money on the table building a unique solution. So that's the reason most of companies try to build solutions in a different packages or a different lines of product, whatever. We will discuss a little bit more about this. The third mistake is don't forget how you get paid, because sometimes we build business models copying what the other companies do, and if in your market every company is selling monthly, you used to sell monthly, or if every company is selling annually, you sell annually. You have to avoid to copy, because you need to think a little bit more if your customer will be exactly the same of your competitors. For example, Declarando, in our market, most companies used to sell monthly plans, and some of them annually. And we start doing only quarterly, because for us was more made more sense to sell quarterly, and that was not a very high friction for taking the decision of buy our service. So quarterly plans are not very common, but maybe you have to choose that kind of plans. So at the end of the day, don't copy how you get paid, because it's very important how you build your business model, and sometimes you have some prejudice that put you in situations that can affect your cash flow, and that's very important when you build business models. Another 3 wrong myths. The first one is very simple. I see a lot of landing pages with services or products using weird things, putting an 8 at the end of the price, maybe because they think that it's if you put a 9.9 0.9 is this kind of strategy that is a little bit overused, and yeah, you have to think that even when you are reducing €1 of an offer, that euro, if you scale a lot, can be a lot of profit you are leaving in your path. So remember from the very beginning of the presentation that 1% of improvement is an 11% of yields in your top line of your P&L. So sometimes you don't put that extra 1% in your prices, thinking that it's not a lot, and psychologically does not have any impact in the buy decision of your customer, and can make a lot of impact in your P&L. The second myth is that all the customers are highly price sensitive. This is not true. There are a lot of customers highly price sensitive, yeah, but not all of them. So we tend to think that all of our customers are the same, and the relationship with the prices is all over the same, and that's not true. You have to think that a lot of people doesn't care about the price. Mostly when your product or your service is a small piece in the total budget of the company, of the buyer. If you are selling something that it's only 1% of the budget, of the annual budget of your buyer, 1%, it's a very small piece. So maybe changes in the price are not gonna affect any at all your customer decision. So think all the time in how this product or this service impacts in the budget of your buyer, and if the decision is a very low piece of the budget, the price sensitivity used to trend to a low situation. And yeah, the last one is that managing pricing is not all about managing prices. make not sense when you say it, but make a lot of sense if you start thinking that pricing is much more than only a number you put in a landing page. So you have to start thinking that all around pricing, it's much complex, and you have to start learning how to improve this lever, this most powerful lever for growth, and taking the importance it has. So let's talk a little bit about this very common and very used strategy of packaging. Some of you are very used to see this kind of 3 boxes, 3 packages in the landing pages of a lot of services. That the strategy around this is named Good, Better, Best. Is a name that was in the foundation of the strategy. Now it's not always used like the foundation name was born, because you will see that a lot of companies don't use this strategy well, because the strategy, as the name say, it's built for some reasons. First of all, good means that the lower price package is the packages for the people that are price sensitive. Okay, so it's good enough. The package, it's good enough, and you have to feel that you are buying something that it's good enough. That's the reason of the name good. Then you have the better. The better, you feel that you are buying something extra. You are buying something, not the lower price, something that is better than the lower package that is more designed for people very price sensitive. You are buying something that it's better enough. And that's a very important difference in the word, because better is something that it's better, okay? So we cannot sell at the low price package something bad. You have to sell something good enough, and after that you have to sell something that is better. And finally, the best is for the people that are not price sensitive, obviously. Okay, so when you do this kind of structure, the split between the three packages used to have some thoughts around it regarding how much people will buy every different package. Okay, so you cannot try to sell best package the most, because it's not designed for selling to the most of your target. It's designed for selling to the no price sensitive people. Most of people are not this kind of people, or most of customers. So the traditional split between the three packages are that the good package is designed for around 40% of people who buys you. The better package is designed for around 50% of people or buyers who buys you. And the best package is for only 10% or less the people buys you. Okay, this is the thinking behind this structure. Okay, if you are getting most of your customers in the lower price package, it's not the good way to go. Okay, so best at the same time can be used for an anchoring plan, a plan that has a high price that the other two packages seems very cheaper, because if you use this kind of high number, imagine you are using 100 euros for best, 10 euros for better, 5 euros for good. So good and better are very cheap compared to best. So this best package is doing anchoring. Anchoring is the word that used to be used for this kind of description. Okay, so a lot of people use the best package for showing that the other two are very low price. Okay, another thing that you have to consider when you build packages is that less than 10 features is the optimum. When you build very complex packages with a lot of features, you are adding a lot of thinking in your customer decision, and be simple and facilitate the decision of buying is crucial to sell. Okay, so be simple when you build features. Pages with dozens or dozens of features are super complicated to make the decision, so avoid that. And the last one is not always odd numbers. Odd numbers, maybe you have heard about that, is when you put 9.9, when you don't use the 10, for example. And not always is the good way to go, because when you use 0.9 at the end of your prices, the people used to think that you are selling something cheap. You are selling something that is designed for very price sensitive people. So maybe your kind of product or service is not designed for very price sensitive people. You are positioning yourself, your company, in a high level value company. So you have to not always choose this kind of odd numbers. So when you build your package, you have to separate three kind of features: the filler, the leader, and the killer. This is very simple. The leader is the most important feature you put in every package. Every package have to have a feature that is the one that makes your customer buy. You can put 10 features in every package, but most of the times only one or two or three features are the ones that resonate and make the decision of buying. And you have to know which of your features are the leaders. This is very important. If you don't know that, you don't have any kind of packaging strategy in place. You have a bad design in your packaging, because you need to know how your customers think about your features, and you will have to speak with them to understand what is the feature that makes the decision in their minds. Okay. After that, after knowing which is the leader features, you have to put at least one of them in every package, because if you don't do that, you are not going to be able to sell the package without any leader feature. Okay. And you fill with filler features the rest of every package, and careful with the killer features. Okay, the killer features are the ones that the customer sometimes feels that is adding cost to the package, and they don't need for anything that feature. If you have features that are more designed for a small portion of your customers, and the features seems to be costly, very with a very high importance in the total amount of cost of the package, you could be in trouble. So the important thing about knowing which are the killer features is that you have sometimes to separate of the package and put them like an add-on. Okay, so for some people the killer feature will be very important, but for most of the people won't be. Okay, so if you identify which are the killer, you can separate them and put them as an add-on. Okay, so you have to learn how to mix these three features, and doing that, you will be building good packages. Okay, and that's the main things I wanted to share with you. I prepare a couple of 3 examples if we still have some time. Yeah, we still have some time, of companies doing good things around communicating pricing. Okay, so let me share you first of all this one. Maybe some of you know Peloton, this company selling bikes. Okay, so why for me it's a good example, this company, because this company is selling much more than a bike. It's selling a lot of these behavioral feelings that a customer has when makes the decision of buying. So if you can see in this landing page, you are seeing images that, as most of you know, are very important for getting some feelings from the customer when makes the decision. So look at this kind of page. It's not a simple page with only features. You can see a lot of images that can communicate with you what you are going to get buying this kind of bikes. Maybe you are getting to be like these two guys, very fit guys, or whatever. But you have to try to sell these feelings sometimes in your products, and this is a good example of how doing that. Another thing that I like to mention of this landing page is the use of the colors is very important as well. When you do some kind of discounts, using the red color is a very popular tactic, because we used to think that red color is related to bargains. So that's a thing that a lot of people does when they design pages for selling. Trying to simplify the decision of buying using financing is a thing that remove a lot of friction when you make the decision. And here are the add-ons. So the add-ons are very popular when you sell products, but are not so popular when you sell services as subscription. Okay, so you have to start thinking that these killer features I mentioned before, sometimes must to be put as add-ons. So product companies used to do that a lot, but service companies, we have to do that as well. Okay, so the second landing page I would like to share is this one. I like this page because it's very simple, trying to not overwhelm your customer is very important, as I mentioned before, and simple pages, not odd numbers. If you can see here, these are not odd numbers, very simple, very rounded numbers, and you can take the decision very quickly, only reading the price because it's low price. When you sell something low price, with low price, the decision is much simpler, much easier to take. So you can take the decision only reading this, okay? If you want to read more, obviously you have more explanation here with this. If you can see, are 9 features. You don't have more than 10 features. If you have more, you can hide them in this kind of select, okay? So for people that like to read a lot, yeah, you can put that option for that kind of people, but are not most of people. So most of people like to make decisions reading reading less, okay? So this page for me is interesting for that. And finally, this final page are using odd numbers because it's not using the 10, the 20, the 30, because used to be thresholds where using the odd number is very useful. So you have to test that. You have to experiment around which is the price point is gonna convert, is gonna allow you to sell more. And yeah, that's another strategy for trying to optimize your pricing strategy. Again, less than 10 features, okay? And another thing that this page has is that you guide your customer to choose. It's important to let them know that they don't need to think a lot, and if they don't want to think a lot, yeah, they can follow the line. So we are guiding the customer to choose the most popular, the one with the red button. Okay, so this seems silly, but it's not, because most of people don't like to think. Okay, so. And yeah, that's it. All I wanted to share with you guys.
Thanks a lot, Juanjo. I think it's super, super interesting. And well, for those who don't know Juanjo, he's a super knowledgeable person about pricing. He actually has a podcast in Spanish about pricing. So you definitely, if you speak the language, you should 100% take a listen to it. So thank you, Juanjo.
Thank you.
We have a couple of questions. We don't have much time, but let's go for just a couple very quickly. So Monica here says, how would you gather information about how much the customers are willing to pay before building a product or a service? Asking directly in a survey?
Yeah, that's I think that's the best question you can ask. Yeah, it's not easy to explain it in a few minutes, because that's the reason I avoid to put in the presentation. There are some techniques. The most simple ways to ask, as you mentioned. When you ask directly how much is willing to pay, you will get some info around the optimum price point, but you have to know that there are other techniques that can allow you to get more precise price point. But yeah, it's better to ask directly than don't do anything. So the short answer for the question is that you can do that. But there are other techniques that are a little bit more complex to explain in a few minutes.
100%. And just a very quick question. Hopefully, Tara here says, at Declarando, I see the pricing as good, 70 euro, better, 100 euro, and best, 250 euro. Which test do you do to test your current pricing?
Yeah, when you have a company with a lot of years like ours, we have done a lot of testing. I like to do real testing. What I mean is, when sometimes the more easy way to test prices is change it, try to sell the new price, the new product, whatever, and measure how the main KPIs are affected by the change. So sometimes, if you don't have a lot of time for doing a lot of analysis, try things, and if you are selling a few services per month, per week, whatever, changing prices is not won't have a lot of impact, and you can change again. And so we have been experimenting a lot of pricing. We used to put prices in the public pages different to the prices you have in the private pages. So yeah, avoid the paralysis for analysis, avoid the fear to do changes in prices, and you have to start doing a lot of things.
100%. We have more questions, but we don't have time. But definitely, Juanjo is a super reachable person, so I'm pretty sure if you ask around, he'll be happy to answer. Thank you, Juanjo, for this talk, and have a nice
Thank
evening.
you. Thank you.
So just before we introduce the next speaker, we're gonna have one ad from one of our sponsors, Optimizely. So yeah. So our next speaker is Rachel Caisi. She's the search experiences product manager at Reddit, and she's gonna talk about how building is changing in the era of AI. So welcome, Rachel.
Hello, super excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Hopefully this will be a helpful session for you all. As Alex mentioned before, I'm a product manager at Reddit. So I've been there almost half a decade working on building out the search experiences. So I worked for the first few years on backend search relevance and ranking. Then I did a little bit of front end and back end at the same time. And for the past few years, I've been focusing on front end. So I'm going to talk a bit about that, the product process, etc., and then also about my work as a product manager at Taimaka. So I volunteer, and they are essentially revolutionizing the way that malnutrition care works using digital health tech. So I help them by doing some product work for them and also managing a few engineers. So before I get into the presentation, I usually start with a little story. So this is a little bit easier with a live audience where I can see everyone's faces, but I usually ask people, does anyone ever wake up feeling a little bit like this, where they're just a little bit tired? Maybe they've got a headache, they've got some jaw pain, maybe some lower back pain. I feel like a lot of us have felt that way in some way, shape, or form. And so imagine that you are feeling this way someday when you wake up. So you decide to go into urgent care, that's what we call it in the US or UK, just to get yourself checked out. You ask the doctor to run some tests, and they do so. And one of the things that they actually do is they take some measurements and they put it through a model called the code ACS. So this is actually testing for a heart attack. And you might think, oh, that's a bit extreme. Like I just had some minor symptoms, it didn't feel great. But it's actually more common than you might think. So every 40 seconds, someone in the US has a heart attack. And unfortunately, only 10% survive out of hospital heart attacks. And so what does this all have to do with AI? Well, unfortunately, this model that has been used and other models that have been used have been a little bit biased. So traditionally, it's shown that women are 50% more likely to be misdiagnosed for heart attacks than men. And there are a lot of different reasons for this, but one of them is that the data is traditionally biased around what kind of symptoms women have versus what men have. And then this kind of bias is translated into the different AI models. So a different modeling system called a GRACE score showed significantly lower performance in predicting heart attacks in women compared to men. So this just goes to show that even if you might think that the nuances are small or they might be insignificant, they can have quite real life impacts. So if you walk away from anything from this presentation is that you all hold incredible amounts of power. The people that have the power and privilege to be able to work on these kinds of models are the ones that are shaping the future. So I believe it's our responsibility to make sure that we're doing that as ethically as possible. So I'll walk through some examples of how I do this in my own product development cycle and how I work with stakeholders, etc. So high level, there's going to be 3 sections to this presentation. Number 1 is building safe AI products that solve real user problems. 2 is building products that are directly saving or improving lives. And then last but not least is building, empowering others to be building impactful data-driven projects. So before we get into that, I wanted to do a little introduction into the work that I do. So if anyone has used Reddit search before, this is what I work on. So it is, of course, the search bar, as most people expect, but it is also the search results page. So it is all the different results you see on the posts, communities, comments, tabs. All of those are things that I would work on and how they appear. And most recently, I started working on a product called Answers. And usually I'll ask people if they have actually seen this product before, but it launched recently, earlier this year, and became available to other countries recently. But essentially what this does is it provides you a short summarization of the results. But the main difference is that we know that people come to Reddit directly for quotes and direct sources. So we don't want to take that away from you. Essentially, this is a new way to search. So whenever you click on any of these blue links that you see, you'll be taken directly to the person that said that quote, as well as the post that it was in and the subreddit that it was in. So I essentially think of it as a new way to search. And then a little bit about Taimaka. So I mentioned it briefly before, but it's a nonprofit that is revolutionizing the way that digital healthcare works for malnutrition. So a little quiz for you all. I don't know if you're able to respond in the chat, but my question is, how big of a problem do you all think malnutrition is? Number 1, it causes short-term illness in some children. 2, it's a moderate contributor to child health issues globally. 3, it's one of the top 10 causes of death for children under 5. Or 4, it is the leading cause of death for children under 5. I don't know if people were able to respond in the chat, but usually I will give people a second to answer. And the answer is actually 4. So it is the leading cause of death for children under 5, which was a very strong fact for me to find out. And that actually translates to 200,000 children every single year dying of a cause that is completely preventable. Put another way, that's the equivalent of a jumbo jet of children crashing more than every day of the year. So all of these numbers and data were really moving to me. And so I decided that this was something really important worth working on. So for Taimaka, what I'm helping them do is I'm building out 2 products with them. So one of them is a mobile app that allows community health workers to essentially intake children more quickly so that doctors don't have to do all of the triaging. And then doctors can spend more time on patients that are more ill or more malnourished. And then the second one is a desktop webpage. So essentially this allows the doctors and nurses to track the children's progress over time. So to make sure that they are actually gaining the weight that they need to be gaining. And they found that it's 60% cheaper than legacy approaches. So it's extremely cost effective, which is also something that's pretty important to me. A few other projects that I've worked on, one-click searches. So the ability to dive more deeply into a topic that we think might be interesting to you. So you can see that little highlight there that will perform a search without you having to type anything in. The second one is the ability to search comments within posts. So if you're on a Reddit post, there's probably going to be a lot of comments. So if you want to see if a specific term is mentioned, you can now search within the comments in a post. And last but not least is the answers feature. So the one that I mentioned before, bringing it to the search results page so that people can more or less pick the way that they want to engage with content. So they don't have to choose traditional search results or just choose doing answers. They can choose between the two. So also, people probably already know this, but I usually will briefly go through it. The definition of a product manager, I think it does change depending on the team and the company, but I think of them as the people that are setting the strategy and the roadmap for a product. So they're the ones identifying the user problems that need to be solved and prioritizing them in the right order, and just making sure that the actual project is being executed on and that we have the right measures for success. So I'm going to start with the first two topics. So the building of AI products and building products that are directly saving or improving lives. And then we'll get to the third one at the very end. High level, I think of the product thinking process in three ways. So number one is identifying your users and problems. So this is something that I think quite a few people skip, unfortunately, and they don't fully flesh out who they're solving for or the problem they're solving for. So this is the first one that I encourage people to try to spend some time on if they haven't already, and then prioritize. So this is making sure that you're picking the right problem to solve, because there will be an infinite amount of problems you could solve, and you need to make sure that you are solving the right ones depending on the most urgent user needs or needs for the business. And last but not least is solving for your user. So this is the fun part when you actually get to build. So high level, when I think about identifying your users and problems, I encourage people to start very, very wide. So think of a set of people you could build for through personal experiences, or maybe different companies that you've bought from or know of that might have problems. How might you be able to solve those? And then, of course, you could research on pressing problems. So that's how I ended up working with Taimaka, is because I felt like the problem they were addressing is something that was very large and worth solving for. And I wouldn't worry too much about narrowing down at this point. You can just get as many users and problems that you could solve for on paper, and then you prioritize later. So here's an example of something that you would see at Reddit. So you can see that it's broken down quite a bit, and it actually breaks down even further than this. But this is the sort of granularity that is helpful for understanding exactly who you're solving for when you're building out a product. So maybe you're not just building for someone who uses Reddit search. Maybe you're using or building something that would be for people who only want to use the type ahead feature. So the drop down that shows up before you even get to the search results page. So when you're developing that product, that would be very different from something as if you were developing something on the full search results page. Similarly, on Taimaka, there's slightly fewer users, but they're all equally important. So as you can see, of course, there's the healthcare workers and the patients, but it's also their families. And sometimes it's not always their families, but also their caregivers. And then you have to think about all the other people involved in the program at Taimaka. They would also be people that you could be solving for. And then I always encourage people not to think about AI applications at this point. It's a little bit too early, so don't start developing a solution before you fully understand the problem you're solving. So in terms of the next stage, prioritization. So number one, I encourage people to try to really, really narrow it down to a fairly limited scope. So think minimum viable product, think really, really basic. And then you pick the users and the problems that you want to prioritize. A couple of things to keep in mind is what kinds of problems affect the most number of people, what might be the most urgent, and then last but not least, you have to consider the feasibility of it, because you probably only have a limited amount of time. And so you need to make sure that you're actually solving within reasonable scope of either your time or resources. And last but not least is spend a little bit of time to really understand the user and the problem that you're trying to solve. So this might be looking at previous attempts to solve this problem, or maybe these are products that already exist and they have solved this problem, because understanding how other people have approached it can be really helpful in shaping the way that you approach the same problem. So some special considerations when building out AI products. So there are quite a few ethical risks, I think, when you're understanding the users that you might be solving for. So specifically, a question that I might ask myself is, when you select a set of users, are they potentially more vulnerable if your solution went wrong? So in the example of Taimaka, it's fairly clear that if you built something that didn't work correctly, there's a possibility that you could be affecting severe cases of malnutrition or children. So you'd probably want to be extra careful when you're building out those products. And then the other thing I always encourage people to double check on is there a smaller subset of users that you can focus on. So it can be easy to develop a product with the intention of building for only one user or one user group. But because of the way the AI works is it can really multiply the impact for better or for worse. And so you just want to make sure that the problem that you're actually solving for and the users you're actually solving for are actually the ones primarily being impacted. So for example, if you were to build out an HR tool to help hiring, you might think, okay, my users are the HR people and then the people that are trying to get interviewed. But ultimately, the effects of this model are going to be seen throughout the company. So whoever you hire will then go on to build out certain types of products and then ultimately impact the company at a larger level. And then problem selection. So one thing to think about is, are there a lot of other people trying to tackle this problem? And does it seem like this problem has already been solved? So this goes back to understanding what competitors are doing and making sure that you're not repeating the same sort of thing that they had already tried 10 years ago. And then, of course, is it a sensitive problem? We've already gone through examples of healthcare and hiring. Another example is using AI models to predict parole lengths. So just make sure that if you're working on a sensitive problem, you need to take extra precautions. And then this question is usually what I ask to people in live audience. How many people have Googled something and landed on a Reddit post? Usually the answer is quite a few people, because I think this is a very common experience. And we know this. So one of the products that I helped build out, which I mentioned before, was the ability to see answers on a search results page. So we know that there are people who use Reddit search already and they want to learn about certain topics. And so traditionally they might have gone through Google, but what if there's a way that we can offer them even more diversity of results or formats of results on the search results page? So a few things that we need to consider here when understanding the users are international users. So if there are people who speak different languages or are from a different country, how can we make sure that the results and the experience are equally as good? And then the second thing is the safety of searches. So we know that people come to Reddit for sensitive topics. So how can we make sure that the results of this answers unit are appropriate depending on what the person has put into the search bar? So a sample user problem here might be, as a user, I want to quickly be able to see what Reddit has to say about a topic I'm interested in. And one of the challenges here that we reached was definitely differentiating in product. So there are a lot of LLM-powered search experiences out there. And so it's a matter of how can we be sure that we're offering some sort of unique value and access to the Reddit information that other platforms might not be able to. And then likewise at Taimaka, one of the projects that we worked on was mortality predictions. So specifically the people that we are solving for here are, of course, the patients who need the care, but also the doctors and nurses and healthcare workers who are very invested in the child's case. And then, of course, the family and caretakers of the patients. And specifically, the problem we are trying to address here is, as a care provider, they want to know which children need to be seen most urgently. And sometimes that can be difficult to tell when you're inputting all kinds of data before when the child initially gets seen. So it's hard to have a single number give a prediction. So the hope is that with this prediction, this would give us an initial flag for the patients that most urgently need the care. So now you get to the fun, exciting part of actually building out the product. So here, again, I encourage people to brainstorm widely first, and then they can narrow it down later. So when you're brainstorming, always try to map it directly to user problems. Another thing, obviously consider existing products, as mentioned before, and then you'll eventually identify an MVP or minimum viable product. So this is something you want to be as simple as possible to test the hypothesis that you're trying to solve out. So this is the simplest form of the product that is your attempt at solving the user problem. One of the things that you definitely want to keep in mind is feasibility and how you'll get users to test. And one thing to make sure that you're always doing as you're developing the product is tying it back to the user. So for the example on Reddit, one of the things that we needed to consider was the safety considerations mentioned before. So safety of results, what kinds of results show up for different types of users, the freshness of results. So search results aren't very helpful if they're out of date. And then, of course, hallucinations. So when a user types something in, and if the information is not true or hallucinated, how big of an impact will this have on the users? And then additional things we needed to consider is geo-targeting. So again, addressing the international users, how can we make sure that they're having a good experience as well? An MVP would probably be rolling out to a very small portion or specific location first, and then expanding out depending on the performance of that initial test. And then another thing we had to consider was differences between Android and iOS users. So traditionally, iOS users are more in the Western world. Android is essentially the rest of the world. So these behaviors change depending on what kind of device the person is using. And for the mortality predictor, we had to ask ourselves quite a few questions because it is a pretty sensitive topic and product that we're building. So one of the things that we needed to ask multiple times is, how can we incorporate humans in the process? I think this is one of the most important things you need to consider as you're building out AI products, because unfortunately AI does make mistakes. And so you need to make sure that there's someone able to at least be monitoring to some extent, especially with cases like this, which are pretty high stakes, and double checking that there isn't some strange numbers coming out of it or unexpected results. Freshness continues to be an issue, so you don't want to be giving predictions that are a week out of date. And then you also have to consider that the data might be biased. So maybe you initially rolled out this predictor in a certain area of Nigeria where the nonprofit functions, but what if you're now serving a new area and the predictions are no longer accurate? So you need to consider all of these things when you're building out the product. A couple other things that I always think about is technical feasibility. So what are the model capabilities? There are a million different models that you can use out there. Is there one that's particularly good for your use case? And asking yourself why or why not. Your bandwidth, of course. So what is the capacity of your team to actually do something like fine tuning or prompt tuning if it's necessary, because that can actually take quite a lot of time and resources. And then, of course, data collection and quality. Do you actually have access to the data that you need? And is there a way to make sure that it remains fresh and does not go stale? And then, of course, the risks. So what if someone uses your product in a way that you didn't expect? How can you make sure that you are mitigating that risk? What happens if people are putting sensitive data into your model and you're ensuring that it's not going to leak anywhere? And then, as mentioned before, the bias and hallucinations that are very common with traditional ML models and LLMs. So this is another quiz that I usually ask people in person. How much water does a mid-sized data center use per day? Equivalent of 100 homes, 1,000, 10,000, or 100,000? So the answer is actually 100,000 homes. So this leads to the question of, do I actually need to use AI to solve this problem? I do believe it's an extremely powerful technology and is helpful in a lot of cases, but I think there are also cases in which it's a bit over-engineering and just trying to use a new technology for the sake of using it. So I think it is definitely worth asking yourself, okay, maybe I don't need AI in this feature, but I can use it in a different part of the product. So specific questions that I ask around training and data is, why or how was the data chosen? What quality controls are in place? And then for the risks and mitigations, I try my best to list out the different risks for each different product and potential mitigations. I ask myself, what could go wrong if the model underperforms? What could go wrong if the model performs as expected? So again, I hope that this sort of reminds you that you hold incredible amounts of power. So the responsibility is not just on the engineers building out the models, it's also on the product managers. So they're the ones that ultimately see the high level view of a project. And so it's your responsibility to make sure that these sort of ethical checks and considerations are made throughout the process and not just once you've already built the product. So now I'm going to briefly touch on the last option for backing others that are building impactful data-driven products. So I know that not everyone is in a position right now to have a large say. Maybe some people in the audience are not even product managers yet, but I still think you can have a very large impact on different people that are building these kinds of products that, and you can back them in different ways. So one of the questions that I asked to a lot of people is, how many of you have donated to a charity or a friend's fundraiser? And usually the answer is quite a few people, because I think that's really common. And we don't talk about it very much. So this little badge here shows that I pledge 5% of my income to high impact charities. So the reason I bring this up is because I think it's something that's not spoken about very often, but a lot of people are doing it anyways. And I think it's okay to be more vocal about donating, because it's a good thing. We want to encourage people to do it more. And it can have a really, really big impact, even more than what you might be doing in your day job. So as a really quick example, I've taken the average London salaries, and let's say you're somewhere around 40,000. If you donate your 1%, that's £400 per year, £33 per month, which is essentially equivalent to about 1 pint less per week. And if you're donating in the right places, for example, this charity here, you could restore eyesight for 11 people with curable blindness, or provide 3 children with specialized sight restoring surgery. And so the point here is to say that you don't have to have any experience in digital health tech or health at all, and you can still have the same, if not more, impact than if you were working directly on one of those products. So I just want to offer that as an example. And then the last one I'll give is Village Enterprise, which is a different organization. And with that same amount of £400, you can provide seed funding for 3 businesses. So I know most people think of investing and VC and all of that as having to have millions and millions laying around that you could just give away and burn if you needed to, but it really depends on where you're investing. So the point of this is to say that you don't have to be this person to have a really big impact or build really great products or make a change in the world. You can essentially be the person behind the laptop coding or being a product manager, whatever that may be. So hopefully this has given you a few different options through finding ways that you can leverage the power and privilege that we all have. And that is the end of the presentation. So thank you very much. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Sorry, thank you very much, Rachel. That was super interesting. You know, I have actually one question, because you talk about how you have to take into account lots of stuff when building a product with AI. So moving forward, how do you think you will, how do you think that the role of the product manager will change with AI? Because right now we're experiencing a period of lots of changes. So I'd like to have your opinion on that.
Yeah, no, it is very tricky because everything seems to change every single week. There's some new product that comes out that's able to do some other fantastic things. So I definitely can't say for certain. I do think that there are a lot of things that product managers do that involve a lot of communication and relationship management across a lot of different people. So I think that the role might more heavily shift towards those things rather than something that's a little bit more automated. So maybe something that I do quite a lot is check in on experiments and evaluate them and understand how they're behaving and if they're actually good or bad for the user. And I can see something like this that's fairly repetitive and very numbers based as being more automated in the future. And then I think a lot of the day-to-day things in terms of like meeting notes and meetings, et cetera, I think those again are going to get a little bit easier as well.
100%. So Rachel, thank you very much for being here. That was super interesting. And yeah, have a good evening or afternoon. I don't know where you're based right now, but thank you very much. So yeah, bye.
Thank you.
So for the next talk, we're gonna have a roundtable, because right now, as we were just saying, there are lots of changes with AI. And that's definitely affecting growth and experimentation as well. So we're gonna definitely debate about this for an hour. So for this roundtable, we've got lots of very cool people. We've got Ryan Lucht, who is senior technical advocate at Datadog. Hello, Ryan. We've got Val Sols, who used to work as a head of growth at Revolut. Hi, Val.
Hey, how's it going?
We also have Jorge Moscat, who is head of growth at Tuyo, and Jan Marks. We have lots of people today. Jan Marks, who is the Europe and Latin director at VWO. And the table will be moderated by Alfonso Sainz de Baranda, who is the founder of Growth for You. So welcome.
Hello,
you
everyone.
Hello.
Okay, are we heard properly?
Yeah, I think so.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for coming. I mean, I'm not seeing all the people that are watching us, so we can keep this like if it was a conversation between the 5 of us. What do you think about that?
Lovely.
Seems great.
It's not a round table. It's a corner table somehow. I wish it would be like a simulation of a round table. That would be cool.
Indeed, we can keep it that way. I think that everything will stay between us, right? We can talk freely about anything. But yeah, I think that, well, first, some of you I know from before, thank you for coming. The ones that I didn't, really nice to meet you. And today we're here to talk basically about, I think that the topic is very well picked because it's not only about AI, which is, we can talk for years about everything that is changing. but it is how this is actually sustainable, right? Because right now I think that there's a friend of mine the other day was saying, we shared a video, right, which was a completely stupid video, and the comment on that was, oh, look at, like, I've read that each of these videos takes so much energy, right, to create, and nobody would have ever created this video if it wasn't as easy to create. Now, there is that sustainable part of, environment, but I don't want to talk about the energy part, but about the waste or the excess that is being created. And for me, like, the first question would be to all of you: if all companies use the same AI to optimize their ads, their copy, their experiments, their landing, basically that all tactics are in the end democratized, like, where does the sustainable competitive advantage lie if there's an excess of everything, right? And I don't know if you want to start, Ryan.
Sure. I don't think this is a new challenge, though. I think this is why many people have railed against this idea of best practices for a long time, because best practices in the same way are not differentiated by definition. They are encouraging you to do the same thing that there's already consensus around doing and that other people are already doing. The difference or the competitive advantage has to come from trying things that other people are maybe unwilling or unable to try. And if you want to think about a capability that creates that advantage, it's the capacity to run more experiments and to run experiments faster, to stay ahead of the competition by doing more quickly and more differently than what they're doing. So I don't think this is a new challenge that AI is introducing at all. AI certainly might accelerate the sameness, but it also gives us accelerants for the folks that are, trying to test some out of the box ideas as well.
So it's leveling the playing field in a way, you'd say.
Potentially. But, as I think everyone knows who runs experiments, it's not just a matter of technical challenges, it's cultural ones too. And I don't think AI is leveling the playing field in terms of internal cultures of growth and experimentation.
Of course. Okay, so Val, if you want to go next, basically, you were the head of growth from the beginning in Revolut. You brought it from 0 to 10 million customers. For the past 4 years, you've been doing other stuff, right? Decompressing from the fintech mania back in the day. But what do you think about this? Like, do you think that this is also leveling the playing field? Is it going to create like an excess of everything, or that everything is going to like the best practices are going to go? Everyone is going to have the best practices, and only the ones that will differentiate, or will still a lot of people be unable to catch up to those best practices?
I think actually creates the opposite. So, I mean, AI is really good at like executing certain tasks, right? Like whether it's creative copy, code, these kind of things. But it's really bad at creativity and critical thinking. So I feel like what I've been seeing in the market is that like the people that actually have really strong skills in these areas and kind of like domain expertise, they can kind of like create 10x better results than the competition. And it's basically because the fundamentals of marketing or the fundamentals of growth are still true. You really understanding your audience, understanding kind of like what people connect with, like how do you speak to them in their own language, where do you find them? And AI basically like it's kind of like a junior person, I would say, like it has some good ideas, but it's not really refined yet to really differentiate between what's really great advice and what's, so-so advice.
Actually, I always use when I explain AI to my mother, I always say that it's a motivated intern.
Yeah,
it's like it's an intern, follows instruction very well because he's very motivated, but tough to actually give you like the next step on what you need to create, right?
Yeah. So I think, I mean, like the way I see it is like the best people, they create agents of themselves. So, I mean, for example, we built agents that do end-to-end paid marketing, agents that do end-to-end content marketing. But it's kind of like, because it's people that already built systems that scale to tens of millions of customers. So they know exactly what works and what doesn't work. And so they can just bring their own way of thinking into these agents, right? But on the other hand, if you lack that experience and if you don't understand actually, for example, how to build an acquisition loop like Canva does, or similar companies, you just don't really know how you need to configure the agent, what really matters, what's not so important. So I feel like in the next few years, you're going to see like the best companies like Lovable, etc., just to accelerate really, really fast. And the other ones, I don't know, get some medium results.
Actually, you just introduced something very interesting, which is, you didn't mention it exactly, but it's the templating, right? Which I'm that's the way I'm calling it. It's before, to have like the expert advice from someone, you needed to actually hire that person $500 per hour or whatever it was. Now you could actually build something. That person could create something, create it as a product or an avatar of themselves, and sell it for much cheaper. So it's actually democratizing those tactics. It's allowing more people to have that. Wouldn't you say? Like, in the end, it is lowering the bar or leveling the playing field for everyone.
Well, you can either kind of like make it cheaper or you can make it more expensive, right?
Yeah.
Depends. I mean, it's, I guess, limited supply and there's a lot of demand.
What about you, Jorge? What do you think?
I mean, I agree with everything that was said. It is true that all these AI is kind of democratizing the tools and is democratizing the speed at which we can build stuff. But I think the true winners here, and there are very few of those, are the ones that are not using just the tools individually or separately to optimize specific processes, which, I mean, we all use GPT for our daily work, we use Lovable to create landing pages, etc. But to start thinking like in systems, right? Like having a truly production-ready AI workflow that can take decisions on itself. That has, I mean, you were saying that LLMs are like interns, very motivated interns. Sometimes what happens is I think they are becoming more advanced interns. The problem that they have is that they don't have enough context of the company, of our growth goals, our the company structure, the product, etc. So one of the greatest challenges, I think, at least for us at Tuyo, on applying AI at growth, is to build in a system that has the context of the company, of the products, of the customer, and everything, and can run kind of autonomously, obviously supervised and everything, but autonomously and with the right controls to ensure that the intern doesn't make the mistakes that we think hallucinations and things like that. But I think it's as I said, I mean, it's democratizing the tools and we can build things very fast. I think the winners, or how do you differentiate in this world of AI, is on how to piece together all of these things, give the right context, so that intern is supercharged with the information about the company, the products, and everything, and can run some workflows somehow autonomously with supervision, but and build this kind of autonomous engine that enables us to grow faster.
Okay, amazing. Jan, do you have any take on this?
That's really tough after three pretty intelligent people have spoken their words around this particular subject. You go and address the old guy with the gray hair and say, if I have to add anything on that. But yeah, no, just kidding. I personally feel that, or we can see it also in our daily work already, that it's actually democratizing certain functionalities. Many things get way more easy, way faster. We can actually handle it. The question that becomes the differentiator that I feel is, what do we do with the time that we win for that? So, and this gets us into a territory where actually ChatGPT and Gemini and so on, company, they're pretty bad at, because it gets us into the human part what we do in our life and how we buy products and how we take our decisions and how we relate to other people and so on. So anything that is related to psychology and empathy, which plays a vital role in e-commerce and in the optimization of e-commerce, is getting way more space. So we see a certain shift from optimizing buttons and colors and algorithms and so on towards engagement, empathy, understanding, microsegmentation, and this kind of thing. And I think also that's why the companies that actually have always worked on a strong brand, always worked on understanding their clientele very, very deeply, I think they will become the future winners, because they have much more time to leverage this capability and actually to connect deeper and stronger with their audience. I feel that it's not in the very core of the AI application that suddenly we can do fantastic new things and so on and so forth. It's just not. Right now we see that we are getting rid of a lot of things that we couldn't do before because it takes too much time. And the most interesting question is, what do we do with it, right? And there I've been at media conferences, which is one of the most impacted industry in the world from what's going on in AI, because AI and Google summaries and so on are actually questioning the entire model of news and media distribution. And they are highly investing into humanizing their products and relating deeply to the human values that are carried in their brand. And I think we were going to see more psychologists and people who know how to understand this part of the buyer's journey or donation journey or whatever the website does.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a good take, right? Like, we've gone in a way full circle, because I asked first about sustainability, about if, there's going to be so much crap out there that maybe everyone will be back to the same place of, staying above it. Both Ryan, Val, and Jorge, you both mentioned in the end, like, well, the people who know about how to do this stuff already, like, have an unfair advantage still. Like, there's no way that AI is going to remove these people in a way, and that all the companies that actually know how to do stuff now will do it even better with AI. But you, Jan, we're talking about the other spot is, okay, yes, we're saving a lot of time with this, but what do we do with the extra time? Do we go home, or do we make the products better? And I think it's a great. It's not about only what the AI does and doing it properly with AI. It's, okay, what do we do after it? Interesting. I think that's something that we'll have to see in the future, right? Who actually takes advantage of both of these opportunities of using AI to leverage your work and make it better, the things that and also what you do with the free time that you're actually getting out of it, so that you can even make it even better. So it's like double compounding in a way. Okay, so I'm going to ask each of you one specific question that I sent you before, and then we can keep going with the rest. Sounds okay?
Depends on the question, Alfonso. Depends on the question.
So you already have it. So hopefully you read it and you thought it was good enough. But yeah, so starting with you, Val, because I have you here. So you come from Revolut, the icon of blitzscaling, the first fintech that actually broke every single record in being everywhere at once. So in that phase of exponential growth, and now this was a couple of years ago for you, right? But now that you that you think about the work you did or the work that you're doing now in things, what do you think the AI has more leverage in a way? Is it in optimizing the micro conversions, like going that extra 0.5, extra 1% in the funnel, in the exploration of it? So actually finding, okay, how to reach 5 new countries at once instead of just 2? Or is it in the execution itself, about not only making it faster or better, but actually more strategic because you actually free up the time for this?
It's a good question. I mean, it's definitely not micro optimizations, right? If you want to go like to grow with a pace that OpenAI does, or let's say Revolut, you definitely need like to have 10x bets. So if you look at OpenAI, right, like they had ChatGPT, but then they added Sora, they added like the coding agent. So they're adding like really big bets that basically open the market size massively for them, because the previous product already had some sort of product market fit. If you would spend your time on like, here's like 1%, here's 2%, you would never basically be able to grow at that speed, revenue or user base. So I think where AI has the most leverage, I guess the hard thing back then at Revolut was that we had to build systems that were not entirely in software, right? So if you think about like a bank has to go through, I don't know, compliance checks, KYC, we had to add funding, there's customer support. And so everything that's software based, you can obviously influence, you have clear metrics, you know, kind of like where people get fall off. But for various things, you also have humans in the loops. And actually, that's kind of like often where things fall apart. So I feel like the biggest benefit is actually that you can digitize these parts that were previously done by humans. You have better data and insights, which actually allows you to optimize the loop a lot further. So whether it's around acquisition loops. So for example, if you think about acquisition loops, right? You build content directories that basically cover topic clusters. But you actually have to, like, you can create nearly everything automated, right? Like the landing pages, sub landing pages. But back in the days, what you couldn't automate is like graphics and copy. And so you had humans in the background that actually, I don't know, generated like thousands of landing page copies, thousands of graphics. And your limiting factor on how fast you can scale is actually like how fast you can write copy and create graphics. Nowadays, you can actually outsource that to AI, which allows you to ship landing pages much quicker, which also has a very big impact on like how fast you can scale up these systems. Is it just my sound that's...
I think, Alfonso, you're muted.
Sorry. So I was thinking, you mentioned like we can now go farther in the things that actually break, but we cannot yet be in clients' minds, right? So is there a place where you see that actually that even that bridge, right, can be solved with something like, for example, you just mentioned it, and I was thinking, oh, maybe if Revolut built an app within ChatGPT, it could actually, you know, every single question about the referral, whatever, or even in the AI mode of Google, it could actually answer the questions before that, you know, that people are having trouble with in those funnels that you mentioned that are broken when people come in, right? So there is like actually lots more possibilities than just creating the landing pages in a way, or creating like the parts that we now think about.
Yeah, I mean certain things are specific about Revolut, right? But it only gives you the traffic that you already have, kind of like your brand. Like what's more interesting in SEO is basically getting non-branded traffic, right? So people, for example, they search for sending $100 from, I don't know, the US to the UK. They want to understand, you know, how much it costs or what is the exchange rate. So people are already searching for this. And so often what companies like Revolut or TransferWise do is basically you build a dynamic landing page that generates, I don't know, tens or hundreds of thousands of different landing pages that are optimized for all the various combinations people search for. And so as the idea is basically like you want to solve the intent or the user's question in a way that it's that their job is kind of like completed. So for example, if I want to search for how much does it cost to send $100 to from the US to the UK, right? Like I want to have the answer, but also even better, I offer the solution on how to actually send it for that cost. Similar, for example, if you want to you want to remove a background or a person in a picture, like you can either describe it or you have like a mini application that actually completes the job for the user. And so by offering a better experience for people for what they search, you can capture a lot of the traffic that Google or ChatGPT provides. And in the end, whether it's ChatGPT or Google is kind of like similar. I mean, in the end, if you provide a lot of relevance and help people, I guess, like complete the search query, you got to get a higher ranking, right? If you, for example, if there's just a lot of fluff, and in the end, people have to continue the search, you get probably a very low ranking.
Yeah, sorry, my daughter's just arrived, so I'm going to close the door.
No worries.
Yeah, this is what happens, digital events, guys. Okay.
It's nice that the camera follows you.
Indeed, yeah, cool stuff. I celebrated my 40th birthday a couple of weeks ago, so I got a lot of fancy things that I wouldn't buy in any other circumstance, right? Okay, sorry about the divergence. So Ryan, so I think this goes back a bit to the first question, but also you have a newsletter about experimentation. You talk to a lot of people about how to experiment, how to be better at it. With AI capable of creating so many variants, right? What is the best way that, in this case, growth leaders measure the success? What would be the best way to measure the success of experimentation? Right? Is win rate still like relevant? Should we focus on the speed of aggregated learning? Like you mentioned it before, so I think that I know where you're going to go, but I would like you to explain further to everyone who is hearing us.
Yeah, I don't think win rate was ever a good metric. I think win rate is actively counterproductive of a thing to track. And I'll briefly share a couple of reasons, and then I'll share what I think are the good metrics to measure for success. But win rate, for starters, incentivizes us to try things that we think are safe or consensus or best practices, right? So it actively discourages us from going off and trying those potentially differentiated ideas that are going to help us stand out from the pack. It also fails to capture the value of most of the experiments we run, because most don't win. But if we tested rolling out a new feature and we found it had negative impact, and therefore we did not roll out the feature, that experiment really helped us with some risk mitigation, but we're being punished for it on the win rate measurement. Even if we had an experiment that was flat, maybe now we know something better about resource allocation. Hey, this team shouldn't spend more time working on this problem. They should go find another problem to work on instead, because this topic isn't moving the needle. And then lastly, measuring win rate would imply that you can meaningfully inflect it, that you can predict in advance which ideas are going to work out and which are not. And that is just not my experience or any of the hundreds of growth teams that I've worked with in my career. I don't think anyone can predict in advance what's going to work and what's not, at least at scale, right? So what's a better way to measure our experimentation programs, especially as AI is helping us scale? I actually tell leaders to measure 3 different metrics. So one is adoption. How many teams and functions and people in your company are running experiments? Because that's very important. We want to be able to make better decisions in many different functions, not just better UI UX decisions or better product feature decisions, but we want to make better pricing decisions and better operations decisions and better decisions about our customer support. The second metric is efficiency. So what is our actual cost per experiment? Because if you can get that number very close to 0, which is very possible with good infrastructure, then it doesn't matter what your win rate is, because the cost of not trying an idea is much, much higher than the cost of a failure when you spent nothing to run the test, essentially. And then the final thing that's really important is trustworthiness, because if we don't trust our test results, then what are we really doing in the first place? And that's maybe, are we using certain statistical guardrails? Are we looking at the right data sources? Do we trust our numbers, etc.? But those three goals, adoption, efficiency, trustworthiness, those are the things to measure, definitely not win rate. You're muted again. Still muted.
Me too. I was saying you're on mute, Jan, and okay. I'll try not to mute myself anymore, but tell me if there's lots of sound on the background. So I was saying, Ryan, I agree with you. Win rate has never been the best metric, but I do think there is something that is still, even in an age where we can create thousands of experiments, but for barely any cost, there is one thing that is still scarce in a way, which is traffic or attention, right? You cannot run infinite things unless you have a huge amount of traffic or a huge amount of opportunities.
Run them all simultaneously.
Can you repeat, please?
Thing is much higher than people think it is. You don't need to wait for one test to finish before you launch the next test. Just run many tests at the same time, overlapping on the same traffic. And as long as each test is randomizing independently, then your experiments are still statistically independent of each other, and you're still measuring the causal impact of each feature or variation or treatment on its own. But this excuse that, we don't have as much traffic as Microsoft, so we can only run 100 experiments a year is just it's not true.
Okay, interesting. So that's not how I usually face this. And I'm not sure if any of you guys have actually something to say about this, but certainly what this requires for everyone watching is that we read Ryan's newsletter. I think this is the most the best takeaway for this. Okay, Jan. Let's unmute ourselves.
I'm here. Well, let's unmute ourselves. Yeah, here we are. Tell me.
Okay, so we're talking about experimentation, and obviously VWO is I don't know if it's the Michelin star of your experimentation, like the kitchen.
Thank you, Alfonso. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I would say that it's certainly the most accessible. I mean, obviously we have here Optimizely also being the sponsorship of the event, but I think that VWO has a lot more range of clients than most of the others. And my question to you is, are your clients already using AI? Are most of your clients using AI now, testing hypotheses, or is it still the human creativity and the human drive which actually creates that first step?
Well, there's one particular pillar of VWO where we saw an incredible shift, which was we have the testing piece, but we also have a module for qualitative user behavior analysis. So, the well-known heat maps and session recordings and all that stuff that we and other players offer to the users. Everybody loved colorful heat maps and insightful session recordings, but nobody used them because it was just too time consuming, and it just didn't get you to the particular session or the moment in the session that really matters, and no really properly consolidated results and so on. All this has changed dramatically fast. So we actually saw that the adoption of qualitative user behavior analysis has completely changed. And this on its own already has accelerated the ideation process, because if our customer is able to digest 10,000s of session recordings and then boil down to the 10 most relevant ones and so on and so forth, and then you get to iterations of tests and a speed that is really quite impressive. I think not everybody has adapted it, and not in fields where we would have expected it. But the larger players, which actually really went all in, they really use this quite heavily. I would also say there are indirect consequences. Every conversion rate optimization program comes with lots of daily questions, right? So in whatsoever state of an experiment. And we were with hundreds of people working in support and customer success management and so on and so forth. And that has also dramatically changed. So people can ask questions, how many they want, and they get the results instantly, and our knowledge base is getting smarter and smarter and smarter. She's called Zara, by the way. And yeah, so
be careful with trademark.
I don't know why. I don't know. It's with an S. It's with an S. It's not with a Z.
So like Sora, but with A. Okay.
Yeah. So it's also an interesting shift that we have. The communication between us and the customer has accelerated. So that could tell you that the experimentation game gets more fluent, and because they don't have to wait for that they might have. I would say there's also an effect that, and I'm very much with Bell what you said, that so there is. Yeah, I mean, there has been an overhype to a certain extent. So it was in many fields, it was using AI for the sake of using AI, you know, and rapidly people saw that in many different areas, and saw that, okay, the AI needs validation. It can accelerate things, but you have to validate things. And in general, I would say it has generally accelerated the experimentation game. It's possible to use to test smaller things in a split second, and that's what many users actually do. We mentioned initially also that things have been democratized. That's also something that fits very well with our positioning. You know, VWO always has been the most easy to use tool in order to enable everybody in the company to run experiments. The head of human resources, or the head of customer support, or the photographer, or the journalist, they all test, they experiment, because it's so easy to do that, right? So there is a certain acceleration of that as well, that people are more confident to test on their own, and that's what they do. The validation still is a vital part. It's a snapshot of today. We're also aware that we see how fast things are coming up. Agentic systems are taking over. So it's no longer just isolated, nice to see features. So there are pretty smart things going on already in the back. And I don't know if I should say I'm afraid or I'm curious, but a lot of things are going to happen in 2026, of which we can't even think of, I would say, at this moment.
Okay. All right. I'm really taking that first insight you gave. Like, it's not about giving you ideas on its own, it's giving it enough context so that it gives you those ideas, right? Like Jorge was saying in the first question, because we have all this data excess in a way in most of our companies, but we haven't ever been able to process them correctly. Now AI and tools like yours are allowing us to process them in a way that is enforceable or usable, because we are actually using it, we are giving it as context to make certain decisions. Right? I really think that's
actually there's more information that's actually being used, but also the interaction, let's say, since this is done in a way that is more human and more proactive, and it's also the adoption of data has improved dramatically. So people use it more intensively in a different way, and we embedded also certain chat functionality in it, so people can actually prompt into VWO in many different parts. And this speaks to the human way of doing things in a certain way.
Actually, there used to be this saying that data is like the petrol, right? We can say now that now data is not only petrol, it's being processed into gasoline. So you actually get the gasoline to fuel your car, right? Thanks to AI. Okay, so Jorge, Let's unmute ourselves. So, okay, at Tuyo, you are one of the main insurtech challengers, right? Like you're competing against in a very super traditional sector, insurance. You're battling against giants, right? How are you using AI in this David against Goliath war? And is it allowing you to grow with more efficiency or doing something that you know that your competitors aren't doing?
Yeah, a very good question. The good thing about fighting against giants is that the giants move pretty slow. And in terms of AI, I think it's similar to probably what Revolut saw in banking 10 years ago. Insurance hasn't moved much in the last 100 years, especially on the AI wave. They are now starting, the traditional companies, they are starting to do some small pilots, trying to validate if this works or not, getting through a lot of, compliance, legal, checks before putting anything into production. And the advantage that we have here is that we have been, putting AI in productions in front of customers for the last 2-3 years. So we move fast. We are not afraid of putting AI in front of the customers with the right controls, obviously, and evaluations and things like that. And that's so basically the point is that we have adopted AI as part of one of our core business levers to grow and to be more efficient. Just to give you 2 examples, one is on customer support. For example, we are already automating like 80% of our inbound tickets in chat through AI. So basically AI, there's an AI agent in production responding to clients, and clients know it's an agent and they talk to it and they resolve the tickets occasionally much better than humans. The other thing that it's funny that we have been able to hack our way into fighting against these Goliaths is on LLM visibility. Traditional companies, we have like around 10% of our new customers find us on ChatGPT, Gemini, or LLM searches, and we have hacked our way into this on how to be much visible on LLM prompts than traditional players, and we have like 2x visibility of our brand when you search for home insurance in Spain and digital home insurance in Spain versus traditional players. And we monitor this very closely, and they haven't started figuring out how to win in this new search space. And so, I mean, basically, to sum it up, we move much faster and we are less scared of this new technology, putting the right controls in place and making sure it doesn't do crazy things. But we are not afraid of putting this in front of the customers if solves client problems faster, and it's a way for customers to find us easierly than in a traditional way. Muted again, Alfonso.
Sorry. I was saying these things that you've mentioned, they are both a mix between like the core of the products. Like I think that if I think about insurance, right, I think like the core of the product is predicting risk, where I'd say that it's as Jan was saying, now we are able to process a lot more. Data is now gasoline, not petrol. And then on the other hand is like that top of the funnel part, which is like visibility, etc. Where are you applying it more right now?
In home insurance is very heavy on operations. You have claims, you have thousands of plumbers going into houses. So our first use case was on applying AI to automate a lot of these complex operation processes and reduce the dependency on or the human error in all of these steps that it takes to solve a plumbing problem, for example. So AI started very heavily on the claim processes and on the customer support. One of the things that we want to ensure is to give the customer the best experience, and we fight against the traditional experience with insurance that they have to call over the phone, very long times waiting on the phone call, etc. And we started pushing AI on those parts to add a lot of value to the client and to the customer. as you were saying, insurance is a lot about predicting risk and putting the right price to that risk. And what AI and LLMs give us is, and I think Jan was mentioning it about, was mentioning it to some extent, is that it gives us the power to process a lot of unstructured data that before it was complex to do. We are, for example, now we're analyzing, processing all the human conversations over the phone, and we are also processing with LLMs the navigation of a customer prior to purchasing a policy, and that gives us a lot of insights of what kind of customer you are going to be potentially. Are you going to be somebody that has more prone to give up fraud, or to be more heavy user of the product based on the navigation and the type of questions you ask prior to contracting the policy, and that fits in a much easier way than it used to be before into the underwriting model. And we can, if we know with high percentage of certainty that you're going to be a potentially fraudulent customer, or a customer is going to be a very heavy user of your insurance, we want to have that information prior to giving you a price, and that's what we are starting to do also, and be able to adapt pricing depending on the type of customer that we believe you are, based on ingesting tons of data about a lead, basically.
Okay, thank you, Jorge. I've actually realized, guys, I sent you like tons of questions, and I was kind of worried in the beginning, like saying, "Oh, I don't think we're going to have, I think we're going to have a lot of free time. I should try to think of more." And I don't think we've been even 1/3 of the questions I sent you, and we are like 50 minutes to finish. So, okay, I'll do a quick round of another question to each of you. And then we can go again on general questions, because I really want to have a sync together in several things, right? But Val, in your case, and I would like to understand more also about the recent work that you've done. How do you think AI is changing the playbook for virality that you kind of cracked in Revolut in the beginning, and then you've been working on that in the past few years? But do you think there's a change or something that is making it 10x better, or the virality will keep being the same as it before? What do you think?
I'm not sure about virality. I feel like AI companies found a way to have more like engineered hype. I don't know if that makes sense. So, for example, if you look at like a lot of the AI companies, they understood that influencers have a very high impact, right, on the user acquisition, and they can hype up new product releases quite significantly. So in a way, like, I don't know, when you saw the first image models, video models, audio models, like it always got launched by getting influencers to really hype it up and say, wow, this is going to remove graphic designers. This is going to replace videographers. And people get really excited about this, right? Because they're like, wow, like anybody can create an ad now. Anybody can create a professional picture now. Anybody can create a graphic, right? And so what happens is like people don't really test these things, but everybody's super excited about that future that's presented to them. So what happens is like people get really quick to sign up. They get really quick to pay for the service. And then often what happens is like after a month, 2 months, like they realize that, well, people maybe overpromised a bit, and it's not as good, or it's not there yet that you get like perfect results all the time. Plus, you also need to have some understanding, right? So, for example, if you're not a graphic designer, you might get like pretty good results, but it's not amazing. And so then to get it from good to amazing is quite a lot of effort, or quite a lot of work, and often requires, that you understand the fundamentals of graphic design, that you have some experience on, essentially creating better prompts to get better outcomes. But yeah, I think that's kind of like the biggest thing is that like with AI, because often the products are much better, it seems like you have much stronger product market fit. And therefore, things hype up much more quickly.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's like, that there's really a system that is improved in terms of acquisition. But I think, like the products that are pitched are just, they sound a lot better. They sound a lot more natural. So the product market fit is just perceived higher until people, use it for a longer period.
I think actually that is one of the main problems with most AI products, right? Like they have high acquisition but very low retention because they overpromise, and then yes, you create that image, but how do you edit it to make sure that it actually fits you, right? And that's actually something that I believe now models are looking into it, and how it's not only about creation, it's actually also about how you edit it and make it yours. But yeah, very interesting take, because in the end, virality is not only about bringing customers per se, it's about bringing value. And I don't think we have hacked that yet with AI products to this day. Thank you, Val. So Ryan, next question for you. So Datadog, I don't know much about your company, to be honest. Very enterprisey. You talk every day to a very technical audience, right? Who, from what I've known, they are usually very skeptical of marketing, right? And about doing this stuff in new ways. How are you seeing, like, what have you guys been doing in Datadog to make sure that the AI products and the AI things that you're creating within that are adopted by the community?
Yeah, that's fair. Fair to your point about not knowing a lot about what Datadog does, because it's a huge company with 20-some different products. Experimentation and feature flagging, product analytics is a small part of that. So for background, I was at a startup called Eppo. We were acquired by Datadog in May of this year to help them build out experimentation and feature flagging products. I think there's 2 points. One, for context, the full suite of Datadog products roughly are all about building and understanding software applications and technical systems, right? What's going on under the hood? Are things working the way we expect them to? How do we make them more resilient, more performant, et cetera? And also understanding the business context of these things, right? That's where things like experimentation and product analytics come in. It helps that as a SaaS company, we also have to build and monitor and understand applications and their business impact. So there's this kind of crude metaphor of eating your own dog food, but it means that any AI features that we're building, we are using every day ourselves long before they make it to market and for customers. So Datadog is quite a big company. I think it's something like 7,500 employees around the world, which means we literally have thousands of engineers who are using Claude Code and Cursor every day and building AI features, and then using the Datadog AI features to build Datadog. We are our own biggest customer, literally in terms of like infrastructure costs, before it gets to the market. And then the other, like the very quick thing is just, it also helps that these are things that we know that AI is really good at already. Like there are a lot of AI use cases that are maybe more, what's the word I'm looking for? Speculative still, or, maybe require deep domain expertise to understand how to do well. But it's already clear that like AI is playing a big role in helping to write code, both for engineers and non-engineers. And it can do other things like, Datadog released an open weights model for time series data for quantitative stuff called Toto that you can download on Hugging Face. And we just know that AI is good at these things. So that helps with the skepticism too.
I'm going to write it down. Datadog Toto.
Yeah.
Like the dog, right?
Yes.
Toto. Dorothy's dog in Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, it's not a language model. It's for quantitative work, right? With very large quantitative data sets. Like, software applications can generate billions of events in a day, depending on how large your user base is. So it's for doing analysis of those things. But because it's quantitative, it also means that it's easy to benchmark.
Okay, so this is converging a bit on what Jan was saying before, right? Like how we actually process the information, how we transform the petrol into gasoline, right? So that actually it can actually fuel directly the engines of our businesses.
Right. How do you find yield in the haystack?
Thank you very much, Ryan. So Jan, I have another question for you about experimentation, or better yet, personalization. So I think that there's always been like this, and more in retention. I've worked in my career, I've worked in retention a lot, and you are always trying to get like concrete enough so that you're actually targeting the customer's pain point of why they should stay with you and they should use you. But that promise, and there's many tools that have promised kind of promise this. There's one-to-one personalization, right? Like we can actually know specifically what you need. Do you think that with today's AI tools, are we closer to achieving this, or is it still, this? I would say mindfuck in a way where you think you can get close to it, but in the end, just because you try to get so close, you end up missing it by a mile.
Well, exactly a year ago, I was at the same space here. I'm actually in Cologne, where the Digitale Leute Summit, a German conference, is happening. And my last year's keynote was personalization doesn't work. And I mean, the provocative title was actually because I've heard the title the first time. I think we all heard it, or we read it at least. 1995. That was a very famous book, just shortly before Amazon came around the corner, around one-on-one marketing. And nowadays, today, if you go to some big brands, whether it's Lufthansa or retailers or fashion providers and so on, and the lack of personalization that you see out there is devastating, you should say. So personalization has always, let's say, got stuck. We investigated this a little bit. Why isn't it actually? We see it more in practice. Yes, we see it at the big brands, at Zalando or Otto or Amazon, etc. But in many cases not. And the number one reason that we saw was actually that before getting into personalization, we have to finish a big data warehouse project, or we have to create a complex technology, a huge, new, fantastic, fancy technology, a data lake, or whatever the actual term was then at that day. So the big challenging, let's get our data right and really enrich it and normalize it and make it available and so on. So this focus on technology made us very often forget about the crawl, walk, run approach in personalization. And I hope that you're right, Alfonso, when you say that maybe, just maybe, AI now is just ending this and is actually accelerating the true personalization game in a certain way. It's to be seen, I would say. I still see, if you go into a hotel website and you look for a room for one room, 2 adults, you still see in the presentation of the product a noisy family playing with 3 kids in the pool, which is exactly which I don't want to see if I want to go with my wife on a nice holiday. So as long as we see these stupid examples out there, I think it's still, let's say, there's a way ahead in making it happen. But I think it will now, certain things, as I said initially, have accelerated or have been accelerated, and it's more feasible. We will be able to delegate things as well, so we don't have to consciously pick which of the bloody photos is actually the best fitting one for this particular segment of a couple, right? So I can authorize an AI actually to deliver really suitable content for this particular micro audience in this moment. And question is if we as humans are ready to do that to delegate this, or if there is still a head of content or digital assets picking carefully the supposed ideal photo for everyone. That's a human challenge, I would say. I think it's and it will not be decided about the level of data or the level of accessibility of data. I think if we want to reach the play seriously the personalization game, we need to learn a lot about psychology, empathy, and how to humanize a product. And this is something that at the end we need data points for that. So to make it happen, sometimes only one data point, 2 adults, 1 room. Yeah, you get it. It's a couple. I mean, it's not rocket science, but we need actually to think into this direction and then personalize, humanize, and emotionalize our products accordingly. And if we manage to get to this crawl, walk, run approach, and use AI in a reasonable way there, then we can actually do it, I think.
Okay. Thank you, Jan. And actually, I think that this last part you mentioned ties up with what will be the last question. I know there's so many of them that I haven't made, but I've decided to end this in basically the question about in all this, we've been talking about AI, we've been talking about everything that is changing. But what do you think is the most, in this area of AI and automation and etc., what do you think is the most underrated human skill that a growth or experimental professional needs to cultivate in the next few years? And if let's go back to Jorge, if you want to answer first, and then we finish and wrap up in case there's any questions.
I think somebody mentioned it before. It's definitely like critical thinking. Have the theoretical foundations of what you're doing pretty clear, and have the critical thinking and the the analytic mind to challenge and to and to take the output from an LLM or an AI query and apply it to your specific context, right? We see a lot of people, especially the younger generations and junior people in growth, relying way too much on LLMs for not just for a simple task, but for thinking. Like, okay, I have this challenge, outsource it to ChatGPT, and then just execute over it, and that's definitely a problem because you don't have any criteria. Then why do we need you if we have ChatGPT? If you're just going to take what ChatGPT does and implement it. So definitely critical thinking, and at the end of the day, the foundations of business, economics, and marketing are still very much needed, because you need to be critical on what the LLMs are dumping you as a response.
Thank you very much, Jorge. Val?
Well, yeah, I agree. I think critical thinking is because if you think about like how LLMs are built, it's basically just it's a huge database that tries to predict what is the most likely outcome for your given input. And so in a way, it can't judge whether the advice it gives is correct or incorrect. And if you rely too much on it, you're probably in a lot of times more incorrect than correct. So that's A. I think B is creativity. LLMs are just not very creative. So it's, I guess like the easiest way to explain this is like, if you just have a very simple prompt to generate an image, right? Like the image it looks nice. I mean, nowadays you don't have 20 fingers and 2 heads. So it looks fine, but it's not like amazing, right? On the other hand, if you have, let's say if you take one of the best art directors in the business, like they will be able to create something truly amazing, right? Where you can't even see that it's AI anymore, because the way they describe the scene, the light, the pose, like you can just see that they have a lot of, I guess, A, experience, but also B, they have like very unique ideas of like how, that simple prompt can be done in a way that is just, amazing. And I think realistically speaking, at least until there's a major breakthrough in, what technology is used to power what we call AI nowadays, I don't think it's going to change anytime soon.
Thank you very much, Val. Ryan?
Yep, same answers. I'll use a different word for creativity. The one that everyone in San Francisco talks about these days is taste. You need to have taste.
Well, is taste acquired or born?
Oh, that's another hour-long roundtable with someone, a philosopher smarter than I, perhaps. I think it can be acquired, though.
Okay. Anything else to add, Ryan? Or, well, you've muted yourself, so I'm guessing not. Okay, Jan?
Yeah. as in the earlier rounds. Hard to add something on it, and so I'm doing my best. I think when the crazy AI times actually went public, so to say, right, with ChatGPT, and everybody was going crazy and expecting this to be used everywhere and so on. I remember the day that our CEO arranged a spontaneous meeting and shared his vision about it. And I will never forget what he said. There's only one skill that I expect from you, and that will actually drive you forward and our company forward. And it is curiosity. So be curious. Things will change so quickly, so dramatically fast. They're not predictable, and you can only keep track and stay up to speed and surf on top of the wave and not under the wave if you're curious. And if you combine curiosity with empathy, then you can actually address things that it will take very, very long for an artificial intelligence to get into this space. And if you combine these particular capabilities and bake them into your product or into the presentation of your product, into your daily work, I think, then we're good.
Well, I guess that we have, thank you very much. We've had a wonderful conversation, 1 hour long. And I would pose this question to all of you and to everyone who's hearing us is, we've mentioned a lot of things that we need to make sure that we actually use or have to get the most out of AI. Empathy, curiosity, taste, creativity, critical thinking. I think that the biggest challenge that we're going to be facing is how do we actually make it so that the new generations or the people that are coming after us actually are able to develop all this. As Jorge was saying, most people that are coming, it's going to be way more difficult for them to actually acquire the things that we've had because we got them by basically pounding our heads to the walls and by having nobody to answer us or having mentors that showed us. So we will see how it goes, and hopefully in 1 year, we'll have a talk again and see if we can answer this or see how it's gone. Thank you very much to all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So yeah, thank you very much to all. I feel like we could spend like another hour at least listening to this roundtable.
Based on the questions, yes. Some questions I have.
And I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one with that feeling. So thank you very much, guys. It's been super interesting, and yeah, have an amazing rest of the day because you guys are located in different locations. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. So right, that was super interesting. And as I was saying, yeah, definitely we could listen to that 4 hours. But before we go on with the next speaker, we're gonna have a short ad with from one of our sponsors, which is WordPress.com.
Hi there, I'm Christy, Automatic's Chief Customer Officer. When speaking with agencies using WordPress and other open source technologies, I'm always impressed by the unique value they deliver to their clients. That's why I'm thrilled to introduce Automatic for Agencies, a new offering meticulously tailored for web design and development teams building stellar sites on WordPress. We've brought together world-class WordPress hosting, a powerful suite of professional tools and plugins, dedicated client management capabilities, and expert technical support. Everything agencies need to streamline operations and focus on what they do best. The web's most innovative and creative work often comes from agencies. With Automatic for Agencies, our mission is to empower you to build and deliver exceptional digital experiences with unparalleled ease. If you're an agency seeking a better way to create WordPress websites at scale, visit automatic.com/for-agencies. Together, we'll help raise the bar for what's possible with WordPress.
All right, so our next speaker, he's Jonathan Kvarfordt. He's the head of GTM growth at Momentum.io, and he's going to talk about why AI adoption is failing and how to be the 5% that works. So welcome, Jonathan.
Hi, how are you, Alex?
Pretty good, and I hope you good yourself.
I am good, but I'm excited for this. Always good to talk to a bald brother in audience, which is good. So,
I'll let you too. Thank you very much.
well, thank you for having me in the Product Hackers Conference. Honored to be here and hopefully give some value. I'm going to go over some information regarding what I'm seeing working well or not inside of the space. Just so you all know, Momentum is an AI orchestration data platform. So we live, breathe, eat, talk, sleep AI to people all day, every day, and around what we see happen. And I'm going to go over some data that we have in a moment. But the goal is hopefully I can give you some things to walk away with and to create some action based on what your company may be working with or not. So I'm just curious, if you're in the comments, I'd love to have you tell me, like, how many of you have been burned by AI tech? And that could mean like you haven't gotten the results you've wanted, you haven't had a good experience, something has failed in some way, shape, and form, and you've just felt like putting a gun to the computer and blowing it up. Anyone have this feeling of like it's just not working? Anyone? I'd love to see in the comments. I know this is like a little lagging, so if you do, I'd love to hear from you and if you've had this experience or feeling before. So, like you said, my name is Jonathan Kvarfordt. Long story short, I was in a startup once upon a time several years ago where I was in a room of 20 people and 10 of them were named John. And so all of us got nicknames, and mine at the time, because I was the sales coach of the team, I got the nickname Coach A because my last name's hard to say. And it stuck. And everywhere I've been to so far has always kind of kept that same nickname, which is nice because there's not very many coaches in companies. There's a lot of Johns usually. So that's my nickname. I'm technically actually got a different title. I'm currently now the VP of GTM strategy and marketing at Momentum. And I lead obviously the marketing. I do a lot of prompt engineering. I help a lot with what's happening inside of the product itself from an AI perspective. And then I also am the founder of GTM AI Academy, which I've had thousands of people go through to learn how to use AI in the individual roles for go-to-market. And I also advise tons of different companies and work a lot in this field. So this is something I geek out on. I'm passionate about it, and hopefully I can give you some goodness to walk away with and take some action on. So today's topic, I want to go over like what I think the core problem or challenge is, golden data that I think everyone has that you're not necessarily accessing in the best way, and then real life examples of some agent use cases that we use here at Momentum to kind of hopefully give you some inspiration. And then the power of prompting at the core of an AI agent is a good prompt, and hopefully I can give you some stuff to walk away with and use in whatever agent platform you might be using. So back in April, I'm sure you guys all saw this, was when the Shopify CEO came out and said that the AI memo that reverberated across the country, because I definitely saw a difference before this happening, and then after, it was a whole different world because companies were then feeling the pressure of needing to do this because they see people like Shopify saying, "Hey, we're not going to hire anybody unless you can tell me the AI can't do this job already." Then you have Mark Benioff coming out and saying that AI is doing 30 or 50% of the work at Salesforce. And then you have Duolingo, and they're saying the same thing, that AI is not just a productivity boost. But the CEO said this: being AI first means we need to rethink how we work. Making minor tweaks to systems designed for humans are not going to get us there. So, and then he says here, many cases we need to start from scratch. We're not going to rebuild everything overnight, but some things, like getting things AI code base, is going to take time. But the technology is perfect. We've seen a move towards that direction, which is fascinating. So when you see these different marketing and headlines and PRs and all this other stuff that talks about how everyone's using AI, there's this feeling that I talk to people individually and then just in general that people have, which is like, I'm behind and everybody else is ahead of me. So we did some study and research on this because I wanted to see if there's any truth to this or not. If everyone else is ahead and only a few are behind. So we took from 1,000 sales calls. Momentum at its core is a data company, and we took all the information from 1,000 sales calls over 6 months, 150 industries, and we're talking sizes of companies from 50 employees up to 15,000, of C-suite directors, VPs, you name it, anybody over this realm, and we found some interesting information. One of which is most companies I would categorize as lagging, 60% in the lagging category. Meaning that, and I'm not talking AI, I'm talking like automation or trying to get things more sped up or have more velocity. 60% are lagging. 29% are in emerging, meaning they're actively looking, but it's definitely fragmented. It's not a lot. And then 11% are what I'd categorize as orchestrated, meaning they're doing a lot more automations, not necessarily with AI, but sometimes they have automations running across the org. So not very many are doing that. On the other side, when we talk about AI adoption, we find something very interesting. McKinsey says that 78% have done some sort of AI adoption. My assumption means, or would assume, this means throwing a ChatGPT license or a Copilot license or something like that at the team and expecting AI transformation. With us, though, as we had these conversations with 1,000+ different companies, what we found was more like this, of like, it's more like 7.6 operational AI, meaning that beyond just prompting a Copilot, having AI that's actually in your operational ecosystem is 7%. And this feeling of we're behind is actually real and justified, because 75% approximately of people were facing some sort of challenges regarding AI, and only half of them are still relying on some sort of manual process to get a lot of business functions done. Like, you'd be amazed of how many people still live in spreadsheets, not even in a CRM. So the gist is that the reality of I'm behind and everyone else is ahead is actually wrong. The point is you actually are behind, but so is everybody else. So hopefully it gives you a little bit of comfort. Now, what we find is the core problem of why AI does not work is because of this, is because of bad data. AI thrives, and its gasoline, its fundamentals relies on data. And most companies don't have documented data. They don't have connected systems. They don't even have defined exit criteria of a sales process, as an example. So AI can't just create nothing out of nothing with no structure or direction of where to go. It needs data and it needs structure. The other half of it is that 70 to 85% of the time preparing for AI projects is spent on just preparing for it, making sure you have the right systems, make sure you have the documented processes and organizations ready for it. Like, it's a lot of preparation. So when you have no solid data foundation and you have inaccurate insights, which leads to process breakdowns, and it means that AI is falling short of the value, this is where most people fall short, because getting data in the right place, getting processes in the right place is not easy. It's not sexy. And it's things that take time. But to me, I always compare it to a slingshot, to where when you do the hard work, it feels like you're going backwards, which you literally are with a slingshot. But as soon as you get everything in place and you let AI happen, you'll launch yourself off into this whole new world that has a lot of good results on the other side. So the challenge is we got to make sure we can think about what does our data foundation look like, and how do we make sure we get in a way where we can actually produce the results we're looking for. My personal opinion is the most valuable data you have, and I would actually say your most competitive and multiple data you have, is in the daily interactions and communications with prospects and customers. The challenge is most places have them residing in some sort of video library and can't tap into it. So as we know, if you use some sort of CRM of some kind, most people on an hour-long conversation speak about 8,000 words, 25 of which we know is from Salesforce research actually lives in Salesforce or your CRM. So even though you have all this data, it's living in your library. It never gets it to a centralized system you can take any action on. So we think, and this is my opinion, humans as the data source and data delivery, this is the crux of the problem. And it's not that humans are the problem, it's the expectation that humans as the data source is the problem. So as an example, if we're expecting that humans, sales reps specifically, or customer success reps, when they talk to customers, they have 8,000 words, they only get 25 words into CRM. The problem is that means that in order for like product or marketing or for leaders to understand what's going on, they have to go to the source, which is a sales rep. So it wastes a lot of time of having, product feedback sessions and close loss sessions and all these different items. It just makes it very timely and wastes time. And then when someone leaves the company, all of that knowledge goes with them. So all that data leaves. Then you have like C-suite. C-suite's trying to make some decisions on the dashboards that are incomplete and not working because the CRM's not filled, and because they have no idea of like how their product is working, where things are running. Like, they just have no insight of what's happening in the business. Sales leaders are guessing because they're trying to figure out what the heck's going on. They have to chase people down and understand what's going on. I don't know how many pipeline meetings I've been in that become glorified CRM data entry parties, which is not strategic. Then you have RevOps and enablement. I'm a RevOps enablement background guy. We have no idea if like deals are stalling, why they're stalling. Is it a methodology problem? Is it a product problem? Is it ICP? And therefore we can't fix it. Customer insights never reached to product or marketing. So currently I am in marketing. And if I didn't have the insights I have from my own system, I would be blind trying to figure out like what is resonating or not in the marketplace. And so these things together just shows you how powerful this data in the first party conversations are, because every single team needs it. BDRs, they have this information on discovery. AEs have obviously all the information in sales. You have the CSMs, which can understand the churn signals and product issues and upsells and all the information from your customer base. You have RevOps, which makes sure they can see dashboards. They need enablement needs this information for methodology adoption or coaching. Execs need this for briefs and pipeline visibility. Marketing needs this for obviously buyer objections, ICP, pitching, messaging. Product needs it to understand, if people even like the product or not, what's going on. And then finance needs to have an understanding of what's real. Like, is pipeline that we have real? Is it going to come through? Are we going to miss our numbers? Like, what's going on? So when you start to think about the value of the data inside of everyday conversations is like so robust, it's not even funny. And again, I would add, this is a multiple, unique, valuable data source that most people aren't tapping into. So again, I think the goldmine of data is the conversations. So when you think about like momentum, is what we do. We have a call transcript. We suck out the information in a structured way. So it's not just running a prompt over a transcript, but it's a multi-layer validation process that cleans and validates the data and then puts it into either like an opportunity object. So like, let's just say a competitor was mentioned. We automatically put that into your CRM. And then we also then communicate to the channel or to an AE or to whatever channel you want to go to and saying, hey, this customer just talked about this competitor. We need to make sure we're aware of this. We can start tracking how many times is this competitor coming up by size or by industry, et cetera. You also have things like account objects. You can update the account information as it comes in, which then can also lead to understanding, are they? And then the event object is like what's happening inside of the actual opportunity. So you can have a reminder in 3 weeks saying, hey, you need to send an email to this person because they got a new job or whatever the case is. So this is an example of the many things we need to focus on and be aware of. Now, kind of going back to the AI agent thing, Google released a white paper earlier this year, which I can send the source if anyone's interested, that talks about what are the fundamental building blocks of an agent. And they talk about 3 things. One of which is an access to an LLM model, Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, you pick your poison. And then you have use of tools. In our case, we're talking about Salesforce. So that could be a Google Calendar, could be SEMrush, could be a varied amount of tools. And then lastly is some sort of orchestration layer. And that at its core is what momentum is. There's other orchestration layers like Zapier is one. There's other orchestration type of tech. We specialize personally in conversational data orchestration. So I want to give you some use cases of what this would look like in action and why I think this is powerful. So if you have 2 people have a call, and let's just say KG buyer, again, that's someone who may or may not be really interested in the technology. So momentum would automatically understand what this risk is by the sentiment of the call, and then understand, okay, is the buyer disengaged? Are they going to be churning in the pipeline? What's happening? And so it'll automatically update the score to high in Salesforce, and then communicate that to a Slack channel saying, hey, we think this person's not engaged because of these 3 reasons. So then you can take action on that and say, okay, do we need to keep going down this path? Do we need to do something else? Like what do we need to do from here? Use case number 2 is on next steps. If anyone's been in sales or CS, you know that next steps is crucial to the success of any customer or deal expanding or winning. So if you have a conversation and they talk about, hey, let's meet next week on this time, it can also auto map that and say, okay, what's the next step? We can make sure that the rep and the information is known between the team, and also update the field so that we all know in the Salesforce field that it's happening next week on the 2nd. And then also send a meeting reminder note of saying, hey, let's make sure we have legal in place before the next meeting happens, whatever the case might be. One more is like one of the favorites of our customers, which is a post-close enablement packet. So think about all the information over 8 to 10 calls of a sales rep, or sometimes over 9 to 12 months if you're enterprise. All the information sits, so momentum will gather all the information and create a packet saying, okay, here's the closed won information. Here's why they won. Here's why they like this. Make sure the CSM has the packet delivered to them so they can have the information that would have taken a meeting to have before. You're going to have the way to create it in the first place. Zahara, I will send it to you in about 3 seconds. I'll make sure I get it to you. I'll send it. Yeah, I'll send it here in a second. In fact, let me grab it fast. AI agent white paper. Thank you. Actually, give me 2 seconds. I'm going to grab it fast because if I don't grab it now, I'm going to forget, and I do not want to forget. So please give me 1 second. We are going to grab it. All righty then. Okay, I'm going to get, there it is, right there. Found it. My apologies for the interruption. I want to make sure we get this. And oh, it's on YouTube. Okay, Zahara, I'm going to send it to the people in the chat. I'm going to give it to you guys, and they're going to send it to you just so we don't miss this. So just, you know, cool. All right, keep going. One more use case, which is coaching. Carlos, I'll get to your question in just 1 second. Good question though. Okay, so for coaching, let's just say there's something that happened in the call. We can create a coaching analysis to make sure we know, okay, what did they do well, what did they do better, and how do we deliver that in a visual that can make sense so that it's actually useful for the sales rep. The nice thing about getting coaching from AI is it's objective, and also it's not your boss, so you don't have to worry about like if you're going to get fired or not. It's just an objective point of view of like what you can do or not. And most people I've used this with from a sales perspective love this because they can have an understanding of like, how am I doing and how do I compare against other team members and what should I do better or differently or whatever. So it's pretty cool. All right, so Carlos, you said, what's the percentage of people that don't want to be recorded? It depends on the industry. Sometimes salespeople are in person. I find that most people who are in person don't like usually having recordings happen. Why? I mean, there's many reasons for that, but that's usually the case. There are some who don't mind. So it really, to me, is about if the sales rep can tactfully make sure they say, hey, I want to take notes. You mind if I take recording of this for an AI note taker? Online and Zoom, I think it's pretty much in the Zoom world, online world, everyone kind of assumes everything's being recorded, you know? So from an online perspective, most of the time, I'd say 99% of the time, people are fine with it. Also depends on the industry, because some industries are regulated, so there's a lot of restrictions. So it just depends on the industry as well. So to me, sadly, it just depends on industry and in person or not. So what I think are core capabilities I want to make sure you know about with Momentum is the ability to take structured data from your conversations across the customer journey, clean it, structure it, and then use it in different ways so you can take action on it. The next part of this is when you can auto-communicate the right signal to the right person at the right time that's unbiased and consistent. I literally just talked to a CRO yesterday that said how he needs and wants objective data that is not subjective, because all he gets is subjective data from the sales reps, which again is important, but you also need that objectivity so you can understand like what's real or not inside of your pipeline. And then lastly is having some sort of automation orchestration so that agents are connected together to actually take action on different things coming from different systems, which is fascinating, which again, you can go into more details of what that would look like from the Google white paper. So that's what Momentum is at its core. Now, there is a difference between transcripts of running a prompt through a transcript and getting a result, which I'm sure most of you are doing right now. What we do at Momentum is we take a 9-layer, technically, structured output. So we go through like this RAG context and multi-stage validation and speaker attribution and all this stuff that goes through the Momentum side. So I just want to make sure you know that's not just a simple prompt over transcript. There's a multi-step process that goes into it to make sure it's clean and validated to go to the right place. Because obviously the last thing you want is AI slopping your CRM. So we take a lot of care to make sure it's very refined and clean for CRM data. Okay, now then, I want to jump into what I call the GRACE framework, GRACE prompting framework. And you can use this. I use this a ton with AI agent prompting. So to go over, obviously, GRACE is an acronym that stands for the following things. Goal. What do you want the AI agent to do? What's its goal? What are you trying to make sure it achieves? What is it? The rules. So there's rules and role, but rules is basically saying this is the guidelines you need to follow, and I need to change that, so my apologies. Next is AI, the advanced context. So what tools does it have access to, or what as an example of advanced context is pretty much saying, if you asked a human to do the same task, what information would they need to know to do that task That information, that advanced context is what an AI agent needs to know to do the same task, essentially. So this, what I find in my prompts, most of the time, my prompts that are really long are a lot of context, mostly. So please know, like, if you ever see my prompts, you'll see that a lot of times they're long, but it's a lot of context going in to make sure the outputs are right. Next up is clear instructions. There's a difference between rules and instructions. Rules is like boundaries that I want the AI agent to play in. Instructions is the step-by-step. So what is the first step they want to be doing? Is it like, do I want to go analyze a call and then give me an analysis? Do I want to go out to and scrape a website and then give me the data? Like, what's the step-by-step process I want it to do? And then lastly is I want to give it examples or a template to follow. I personally love this in the prompting world. In the prompting world, they call this 0 shot, 1 shot, or a few shot learning. But for our circumstances, we're just going to call it examples. The more you can use examples of what you're going for to give it a guidance of how to respond to you, the better. Only because it then has a very narrow idea of how to give you whatever you're looking for. So if you're looking for an analysis or a coaching analysis, I always love to include an example of what that would look like, so the AI can look at the call, look at the analysis and go, you want an analysis that looks like this. Perfect. And then it just pops up the result analysis in the same way. So this context or this format we use a lot in Momentum and in other AI agent platforms. So I use Mind Studio, and I use Relevance and Zapier and a bunch of other technologies, but I use this one a lot to help kind of guide the agent to perform the way I want it to, which is very, very powerful. So to me, the difference between a vague prompt or a grace prompt is way different because I get a lot more specific results as a result going into Slack or Salesforce or whatever. Now, I'm going to skip this real fast, but again, here's an example. When you have structured data, when you have a company who wants to know something very nuanced like a service fee, you can do this with grace prompting so that it understands the context and the importance of why the 5% service fee is important or not. So then it can update Salesforce if it was mentioned, and also update Slack of why that person was talking about it or not. So what we want to do, and in my opinion, where AI really thrives is not relying on the human to do more. I don't want a human to have more new tabs. I don't want him to log in anywhere. I don't want him to do any formatting. And I don't want him to have a lot of effort. In my mind, no matter what technology you use, the new world no longer relies on someone opting into or logging into a platform. It relies on how well the AI can fit inside of someone's workflow so that adoption is low and does not require a lot of brain power on the human. It just comes to them and they can edit the things as they go. So again, doesn't matter if it's Momentum, GTM Buddy, AI is another one that does this. Any tech that I look at, I always look for how does it go to the human instead of asking for the human to go to it. Hopefully that helps a little bit. And this is where a lot of these things you can do to make some pretty big impacts on your specifically your first party data. But hopefully this would be helpful to go through and use the thing like a grace prompt going back here to grace. This is very, very important and very helpful to do for any type of prompting. So that is all. I'm going to stop. We have 4 minutes left, so I'm going to shut up for a second and we'll go from there.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. That was super, super interesting, and I love that grace framework for prompting and stuff. You actually answered one of the questions already, but I wanted to answer to ask you something now, which is you started the talking about how basically every company's falling behind with AI. When do you think the companies will get there with AI? Because I know it's a bit like relative, but
yeah, it's a good question. It depends on the size. So here's my blunt, honest opinion. Most bigger companies are going to have a hard time. You remember how Blockbuster was taken out by Netflix? I think we're going to have a lot of that in various industries over the next 3 or 4 years, because AI needs a few things to thrive. It needs good data, connected data. Most bigger companies don't connect the data, either because they don't have the possibility or they don't have connections, and they don't have documented processes so AI can automate any type of process because they have to understand what's going on. You'd be amazed at how many people I talk to that come in and I say they're doing $100 million in revenue, and I ask them the question of, do you have a sales process that's documented with your exit criteria? And they say no. I'm like, then how do you expect AI to automate that? Like, we got to build that out first. AI can obviously help in creating it, But you got to have a process everyone agrees on and aligns to so you can automate the thing. Otherwise, then they think AI is just this magic pill I can just throw on and fix my non-existent sales process, but it can't do that, you know? So for companies who don't have that, I think it's going to be very much a pain because it's a pain. It's not sexy work to build out the flows and the processes and the data. But once you get it, it has so much good benefits that catches you up really fast when you get it done. And I think most companies who are larger won't do it because of politics, because of governance, because of all of the red tape they put into place to get in the way. And these newer companies who are younger, smarter, faster, AI native will come in and start eating chunks of their business. So that eventually they'll be just taken out very slowly, of death 1,000 cuts, as I call it. So yeah.
basically with
But
AI, sorry, yeah.
I was going to say one last thing. There are companies doing a job, like Chase Bank. The CEO of Chase Bank has the AI person report to him, and they're doing a whole AI innovation thing change for him because the CEO is directing the change. So like there are companies, Duolingo, Salesforce, there are people doing it, but there's a ton more that aren't even doing that type of C-suite down leadership, you know? So anyways, keep going.
100%. Yeah, I was about to say with AI, documenting it's like the most important thing like for the company right now, right? If you want to automate stuff and all that. So
exactly.
100%.
Yeah.
So Jonathan, thank you very much. That was super
Thank you.
interesting. And yeah, have a nice day, nice evening.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Oh, well, let me give you one more thing actually as a gift. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
We have a prompt library of 200 prompts that I wrote for people. So I'm going to send you the link to that. And if people want that, then they can use it and go get some prompts. There's 200 of them for GTM leaders and people. So go have fun.
100% sharing it right now. So thank you.
Thank
very
you
much.
all.
Have a nice day. All right. So we're coming to an end. We're going to go with the last talk of today. Right now, we've got two amazing speakers from Product Hackers. They are Marina Román and Elena Plaza. They're growth managers at Product Hackers. And they're going to talk about how to turn product pages into a 24/7 salesperson. So welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Alex. Thank you for having us. Oh. Now, okay, ready. So, hi, everyone. We are Marina and Elena, growth managers at Product Hackers. And today we're diving into something we love talking about, which is how to drive growth in e-commerce. Before we jump in, I want you to think for a second about your company's best salesperson. What makes them great? They are probably persuasive, they understand the customer, they know when to speak and when to just stay silent. But what if I told you that your best salesperson isn't actually a person? Today, we're going to talk about one of the most overlooked parts of any e-commerce site, the product detail page, and more importantly, about how to turn it into your 24/7 salesperson. So I focus on the PDP. In any e-commerce site, the product detail page is where decisions happen. It's the online version of a customer picking up a product in a store, checking it out, and deciding if it's worth buying. And that data backs this up. According to the Weimar Institute, almost every single customer visits a PDP before making a purchase. But here's the scary part. Only 49% of e-commerce sites deliver a good user experience on these pages. That means that there's a huge gap between people visiting and people actually enjoying the experience. And sure, that probably sounds like a problem, but for us, it's actually an opportunity to grow. So how do we find these opportunities? We use the Product Hackers Canvas, which is a framework that helps us map the entire customer journey in detail, from first contact to advocacy. It allows us to analyze the business, structure all of our current activities, and most importantly, plan our growth strategy. All of these insights are grouped according to the phases of the sales funnel, and it gives us detailed insights into the key areas of improvement so we can identify weak points and discover real growth opportunities. Regarding the funnel, traditionally the PDP is seen as part of the desired state of the funnel, And that used to make sense when customer journeys were linear, but they aren't anymore. And customers now can have many different paths. Today, users enter from anywhere, jump around, compare, come back later, and we need to make sure that the PDP works for all those paths. That means that it has to do 3 things at once: spark interest, build desire, and drive action all at the same time. Now, back into this framework, once the canvas reveals business opportunities and user pain points, the next step will be ideation. And this is where we generate ideas to address these findings through experimentation and hypothesis validation. And let's see what that looks like in practice with Marina.
Thanks, Elena. So yes, exactly. Now we want to dive into 4 levers that we have consistently seen good impact on when applied or when tackled on PDPs. And as we said, no, you want your PDP to be like a 24/7 salesperson, always ready to convince, reassure, and to close the deal. So now we want to relate these 4 levers and tell you a bit more about specific examples on them, and how they can help you avoid some of the classic mistakes we know from the world sales pitches. So you know that when a salesperson comes and says, hey, let me walk you through a quick 30-minute demo. Quick 30 minutes in the same sentence, I don't know. I have some doubts. I mean, I barely have 30 minutes to do groceries. I don't know. I don't think I have 30 minutes for your demo. So same thing happens in your PDP. Users want to scan quickly, understand, and move on. So the first lever would be simplify. Simplify everything, reduce friction, and be mindful of the cognitive load you're asking of your customers. Second lever would be personalization. I'm sure you've all received this LinkedIn message of, hello, whoever, wrong name, or even worse, not even a name, no? So don't make your PDP feel the same way. Try to tailor your content. Try to have some placement available for personalization, so you can really tailor it to the different audiences that come to your PDP. The third lever would be behavioral persuasion. So I'm sure we're all used to this kind of messages of, hurry up, this offer is expiring, buy now, regret forever. I mean, these claims, they are noise right now. They don't build trust. We really have to be mindful when to use cognitive biases and behavioral principles. Be persuasive, but really not pressure the customer. And last but not least, the value proposition is key. If we all claim to have the best-in-class product, then there is no best-in-class product. No, really stop being generic and try to be specific on what really makes your product good and what's the value and why they should buy your product and not their competitors. So now we would, as said, we will present a couple of experiments from each of these levers. And also I want here to thank the whole Product Hackers team, because this is actually a teamwork. This is these are experiments from the whole team. We're just here presenting them, but of course, this is a teamwork. So I hope you enjoy these experiments and we can really see a bit more on how this translates into practice.
Yeah, a big shout out to our colleagues. So let's talk about simplify. And as Marina said, a good salesperson knows how to make the buying process easy by removing friction. And that's exactly what simplify is about. And here's our first experiment. In this client, we identified that there was a need to simplify the buying experience with the goal to improve transactions. And our idea was to reorganize the above default content to reduce friction. So we tested the following hypothesis. By reorganizing the content so that product images appear first, followed by the key info, we will increase the add to cart rate. Why? Because it improves visual hierarchy, reduces cognitive load, and helps user make quicker decisions. You can see the control on the left and the variant on the right and the exact change inside the blue box. and the results were positive for this experiment. Conversions for begin checkout and purchases rose by 3%. Here we learn that even small changes to visual hierarchy can reduce cognitive friction. And by prioritizing what users wanted to see first, we created a smoother, more intuitive path to purchase. So we dug deeper for our next experiment, but this time the idea was to focus on those sticky buttons, since we saw they were distracting users. Here, our hypothesis was, by removing these sticky express checkout buttons, users will be more likely to add more products to their cart, as this change will reduce visual clutter, minimize distractions, and encourage their shopping experience. And look at the results. We increased add to cart by 6% and purchases by 13%. We confirm that users on the PDP are in a shopping mindset, not in a checkout mindset. And by removing distractions, we align with their actual intent, which was to shop, and that led to more sales. Now, Marina, over to you for the next lever.
Thanks. So yeah, now jumping into personalization, and here, I brought you some examples. Before jumping into it, whenever we talk about personalization, I want to stress the fact that technology is key here. Also, if you want to personalize at scale. So you really need a tool that allows you to do so. In this first personalization experiment, also important, it was launched in an e-commerce with a wide catalog, which is also key for personalizing at scale. This is actually the fourth iteration from an experiment. Also, no personalization, but any experimentation program, iteration is key. And where is this coming from? So we had seen in previous experiments that there were groups of users that were seeing non-personalized content. Why? We were creating or targeting for very small niche groups, and we were not capturing the whole audience. So we worked on an opportunity to try to personalize by creating bigger audience groups that capture the whole audience. This is what we called building the waterfall logic recommendation carousel, no? And this is what we see here. So how does this work? If a user comes to our website, they are assigned a certain audience group. If they don't belong to this audience group, they will be assigned to the next audience group. If not, to the next one, and so on. And in this way, we ensure that customers are not seeing fallback content. They're really seeing personalized content. And we're avoiding these so-called blind spots. So once we validated these bigger audience groups, we wanted to test it across versus machine learning powered algorithms and see how this worked. What did we see? Actually, considering this wide catalog that I mentioned, in this particular case, machine learning algorithms outperformed versus control for all segments. So figures you see here are only for the carousel, no, for the products included in the carousel, and we see that we had really impactful increases. But also important to understand, or the main takeaway here would be, there is no one single winning algorithm for everyone, because each specific segment had a winning algorithm. And trust these machine learning algorithms whenever you have a very wide catalog. But also, most importantly, try to avoid these blind spots in your personalization in PDP. And we can move to the next experiment. Okay, thank you. So in this particular case, we're targeting users that we have information about. This means users who had already visited multiple PDPs, users who had already added to cart, or users who had even purchased. So we believed that by showing users products viewed together to this specific product they were seeing in the PDP, instead of showing them products based on historical navigation, we would improve average revenue per user because they were already showing interest in a specific product, and we were covering, let's say, this more specific need. What happened here? we actually saw this algorithm that was showing products related to the product being seen at this moment. We saw this algorithm as the winning version. And the big takeaway here is that context really matters. So recommending in the moment based on what the user is seeing right now, it's important. Also, to give some context, this experiment was done in an e-commerce with a wide variety of products, but also a wide variety of categories. So this meant, or this gave us a really important learning of maybe this purchase in particular has nothing to do with the purchase they did in the past. So really, when we're talking about personalization in PDP, we want to make sure for this particular case that we're showing these products related to that specific need in that moment. And we can move ahead to the next set of experiments for the next lever.
Okay, great. So we've covered simplify and personalization, but what about adding motivation? And this brings us to our third lever, which is behavioral persuasion, because a great salesperson doesn't just sell, they shape needs and desires. And this next experiment is the perfect example. In this e-commerce, there was an opportunity to make the pricing value more tangible with the goal to increase sales. We noticed users weren't fully perceiving the value of the welcome discount. So our idea was to test showing that discount right in the PDP. This hypothesis was by showing the welcome discount right next to the price for new users, we will increase purchases because it helps them clearly perceive the value and feel more motivated to purchase. It's the difference between knowing there's a discount and actually feeling it. And the results were incredible. We saw a 20% uplift in purchases and a 12% uplift in revenue. And the main learning here was that timing and visibility matters. It's not just what we offer, it's when and how we offer it. And presenting value at the exact decision moment drives a powerful motivation. Okay, one more in this section. In this other client, we have the opportunity to encourage users to buy more than one product with the goal to improve the average order value. We had the idea to increase the visibility of tie rewards, buy more, get more. And the hypothesis we tested was, we believe that by introducing this visible reward section, we will increase the average order value by enhancing motivation, improving ability, and driving action. And it worked. We had a 7% uplift in the average order value and a 6% uplift in revenue. And we saw the reward gradient principle in action, which states that when users can see their progress and how close they are to the next reward, their motivation to reach it increases. And now, Marina, what's our final lever? I think you are mute.
Thank you. Sorry. So in these examples, we want to make sure we're showing the customer why our product it's good and what makes it special, what makes it unique. In this case, we were just playing with as Elena mentioned before in another experiment, we were playing with the elements already available. And this is something also, I hope it gives you also some ideas to start experimenting in your PDP, check what's available there, see if there is any reordering possible, if there is any visual hierarchy you want to change. So here we were trying to improve how the value of the product was being perceived for mobile users, okay? So our hypothesis was, we believe that by moving the benefit section higher and making it more visible for mobile users, we expect to increase the number of add to carts because it highlights key value proposition early on, improving user understanding and driving purchase intent. So exactly, we placed it higher because it was really low and users needed to scroll. What did we see? We actually saw an impact in add to cart and also significant impact in purchase. So this really proves that with a simple layout change, you can see some impacts and and really make sure at the end, no, this gave us also some hints and some learnings to try to communicate this value proposition across the whole journey. But we wanted to make sure it was visible here in the PDP. And if we move to the next example, this is interesting because this experiment, it's not coming only from analyzing quantitative data, but also extracting some insights we gained through qualitative studies. No, this is coming from a user study and a MaxDiff study, no, which asks users to rank from least to most priority. So giving a set of benefits, which one was more important for them. And here we saw that the quality was actually important for this type of customers. This, also to give you more context, was was an e-commerce from food e-commerce, also with a price point a bit mid-high. So of course, quality here is important, but also free returns. So our hypothesis was that by highlighting these specific values on the PDP, which were actually not visible and important, keeping them sticky, for mobile users, we expect more users to add a product to their cart, because the benefit for this is a benefit that we know it's important for many customers. We know they value it, and it currently has little visibility on the PDP. So here we saw an impact on add to cart and also on revenue. And this also gave us more insights on, okay, maybe we should communicate this better throughout the whole journey. And this was all. These were all the examples we had for today. But yeah, we want to make sure you go home with some ideas and also some motivation, no, to start experimenting and optimizing your PDP. So to wrap it up, we hope it's clear now, no, why your PDP matters, why is it key, no, for any purchase decision. And maybe analyze your e-commerce site and ask yourself, look at your PDP, ask yourself, is it clear? Is it does the customer know exactly which action they need to perform here? Do they feel listened, in the sense of, do they feel we're offering them something special because we know something from them? Are we creating any motivation? Are we inviting them to perform an action? And also make sure the value is clear and communicated in the right way. So yeah, we hope it was interesting, and yeah, any questions we're happy to answer.
All right, that was super interesting, and I'm pretty sure people got a few insights there. So thank you very much. We actually have a couple of questions from the public. So one of them is from Daniel. He says, "Many thanks for your presentation. I have a brief question for Elena and Marina. How can I start in growth and experimentation?" So there you go.
Okay. So I can go first, Marina, and then if you want to add something.
Sure.
That's actually a great question, and it depends, obviously, on the scenario of your e-commerce, on which stage of the growth you are. But I would say that if you're thinking of starting in growth and experimentation, the first step will be to analyze your e-commerce deeply. Look at quantitative and qualitative data, funnels, heat maps. If you have user surveys, that can serve you a lot to gather insights. And I think that will help you understand the whole picture, where users are dropping off, what confuses them, what causes friction, what key areas of improvements that you have. And actually, at Product Hackers, you use a specific framework, which is called the GOI tree, which stands for goals, opportunities, and ideas. And it helps us connect the business goals that we specific state for each project with the real user problems. And from there, we generate ideas that are relevant and impactful for the specific project and a specific e-commerce that we work with. and that leads to concrete and testable experiments with hypotheses.
I mean, you
That's
basically
like the whole picture.
Yeah, and not much to add there. Just as you see here, there are different examples. We try to give a bit of context, no real clients, but each client it's completely different. So at the end, the recommendation is to get to know your e-commerce, your data, and understand, where are the biggest opportunities, because maybe something doesn't work for your e-commerce, no, and you saw some examples were very relevant for an e-commerce, but maybe they're not for another one. So really get to know well your data and your e-commerce.
Also, I have to add to this that if this person is Spanish speaking, we also have a school at Product Hackers called the Product Hackers School. And there is a master in growth, basically. So skills wise, you can start there as well. So yeah, 100%. Just one more question. Which tool do you recommend for this focus on personalization? Do you need a minimum amount of traffic to be able to create segments recommendations? So that's a double question, but
So, I mean, I've worked, and these examples are from using dynamic yield. So, yes, you do need a certain amount of traffic. I can't tell you like a specific figure, but more, on top of traffic, you need a wide catalog also, because you need to understand also what's available there. And we're talking about, in this case, personalization at scale, no? But also you can start small and start personalizing for if you have less products and less traffic. At the end, it's really having an objective clear, no? But in these examples, we were talking more personalization at scale, and using dynamic yield.
Elena, I don't know if you want to add anything else to that.
I agree with what Marina said. For personalization specifically, it needs to have a tool like dynamic yield or something similar, and you need to have a wide catalog of products and know and segment your audiences so you can trigger them according to their needs and to patterns that you have identified to the personalization so that it feels relevant for them. But mainly that's
100%. 100%. So thank you very much, Elena and Marina. That was super interesting. And yeah, have a nice night because it's already a bit late. But thank you very much for being here today. And yeah, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
So we're coming to an end today. There's been lots of AI today applied to basically every area in a company, like sales, growth, product management. We've talked about pricing, experimentation, and so on. Super interesting day. But before we finish today, we just came up with the 2 winners of the copies of Talia Wolf's books. And those 2 people are the most curious people today. So these 2 people are Zara Cuenca and Monica Pelayo, 5364. So please just send an email to marketing@producthackers.com and we'll tell you the next steps to send you the books, right? So thank you for coming today. Tomorrow we'll continue at the same time, 4 p.m. Spain time. We have lots of interesting speakers like Talia Wolf and many, many others. So see you tomorrow and have a good night or day, depending on where you're located. Thank you very much and see you then.